a new YouGov poll this is fascinating. Now, this was taken June 16th through the 18th, so that would have been what, about roughly a week ago. And it shows that a significant and ever-increasing percentage of Americans think that the United States is already a dictatorship. Now, I've been warning about this since, since Reagan, really. But in a big way since the Patriot Act and all that kind of stuff in the early 2000s. But 24% of people, that's a quarter of Americans in this, or almost a quarter in this YouGov poll, said, quote, the U.S. is a dictatorship. They agreed with that. And if you exclude Republicans or Trump voters, a third of Americans believe that. 35% with independents, it was 30%. So only 7% of Trump voters think we're in a dictatorship. And they're probably quite happy about it. Back in February, now keep in mind, this survey was done last week. So this is June. This is in the summer. Back in February, in the winter, February 3rd through the 6th, they asked a couple thousand people the same question. And at that time, instead of a third of Americans or a quarter of Americans, 24% of Americans, it was only 18% of Americans thought we were in a dictatorship. So are Americans waking up? Maybe. The way that dictators keep people in line, typically, is they know that a rifle shot is more effective than buckshot, right, or than a machine gun fire. If you can selectively take out just a couple of people in different industries and in different jobs, you can successfully intimidate pretty much everybody else in those industries and jobs. So you arrest a mayor, Ras Baraka, the mayor of New York, New Jersey. You arrest a member of Congress. We've got a member of the House of Representatives, forgive me, I'm not recalling her name, who has been arrested. You have a judge, or a state judge in Wisconsin, as I recall, maybe Minnesota, who was arrested. You have a member of the United States Senate, Alex Padilla, who was wrestled to the ground and handcuffed. You have students at Columbia University. You have Harvard University itself being made an example of. So all you have to do is just, you don't have to spend if Trump went after every university in America, everybody who had protested Netanyahu's policies in Gaza, or if Trump went after everybody who had attacked him, or anybody who was standing up to him, he'd have to spend an enormous amount of time and effort. So instead what he does is you pick these individuals, turn them into high-profile examples. The lawyer, the American lawyer who was flying back from Paris and got stopped at the airport and interrogated for hours and hours. The Australian guy who was stopped at the airport in Los Angeles and was interrogated for hours and then deported back or sent back to Australia. You pick some people and make examples of them. And so now Donald Trump is doing this with his own party. Thomas Massie, and nobody questions Thomas Massie's right-wing credentials. I mean, this is a guy who every Christmas posts on social media a picture of himself, his wife, and their 4 boys, every single one of them holding an AR-15 in front of a Christmas tree. Right? This guy is as hardcore right-wing MAGA as you can get. But he actually has some principles. I realize it's hard to understand, but there are some Republicans who still have principles, and one of the principles that he believes is that you should follow the Constitution, at least when it comes to war powers. And so he tweeted constitutional, what Trump is doing. It might be right, it might be the right thing to do, but he didn't ask Congress for permission. And so Trump now, in response to this, has created a super PAC that is going to be run by Chris LaCivita. Chris LaCivita, of course, is the guy who supervised the swift boating of John Kerry, if my recollection is correct. It's called the Kentucky MAGA. It's a super PAC, and that Chris LaCivita is going to run. He says he will spend whatever it takes to take down Thomas Massie, to primary him, to cause him to lose his seat in Kentucky. And like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, I posted a tweet earlier in the week, in which she basically said, attacking Iran, bombing Iran would be a stupid move, and Trump shouldn't do it. She just deleted the tweet. Why? Because she wants to say it's a good gig, Lifetime health insurance, lifetime pension, $200,000 a year, almost. I think it's $180,000 now. Good pay, lots of perks. You get to go on, trips all around the world, paid for by the taxpayer. So, who wants to blow that, right? So here we are. We've got Donald Trump now trying to make an example of Thomas Massie. And Thomas Massie, by the way, with Congressman Ro Khanna, sponsored this legislation that we all need to be calling our, particularly Republican, but all of our members of Congress, and saying, please co-sponsor this legislation that will require a war powers resolution before Trump can bomb another country. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my source with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
Say, fight back!
We're reading The Shadow President, The Truth About Mike Pence by Michael D'Antonio. This is from the first chapter. For decades, Pence had presented himself as a humble servant who could be entrusted with power because he was at heart a mild-mannered Midwesterner. Friends and foes alike said his major character trait was extreme niceness. When given the opportunity, Pence described himself as a true Hoosier, son of Indiana, who was a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. This is how he had introduced himself to the country at the Republican National Convention 6 months earlier. The list contrasted with the usual pledge politicians make to put country first. This is what President Obama did after the 2016 election, when he said, "We are not Democrats first, we are not Republicans first, we are Americans first." The vice president's self-declared identity revealed both his priorities and the source of his power. For 30 years, he had helped lead the Republican Party into a closer alliance with preachers who were turning evangelical Christianity from a religion into a political crusade that engaged in a culture war with non-believers. The aim of many was to destroy abortion rights, roll back the equality gained by gay citizens, and prepare the nation for the second coming of Christ. Pence and others used martial metaphors and considered themselves warriors of the Christian right, both besieged and called upon to fight. Quote, "Those who would have us ignore the battle being fought over life, marriage, and religious liberty have forgotten the lessons of history," said Pence in 2010. "America's darkest moments have come when economic arguments trumped moral principles." Pence's allies in his war included hugely wealthy donors who, despite their vast wealth accumulated at a time of historic inequality, also posed as victims. As libertarians in the mold of Ayn Rand's cardboard characters, they felt inhibited in the pursuit of even greater riches by a government that imposed foolish regulations and would redistribute their wealth to the supposedly indolent poor. Starting with this perspective, they denied the science behind environmental protection, demanded tax cuts for themselves, and insisted on massive reductions in programs serving anyone who wasn't rich. The victimhood claimed by both the libertarians and the Christian right permitted the construction of an alternative reality that denied their own power and masked their ambition to make politics and culture conform to an ideology that included white Christian supremacy and predatory capitalism. It also denied the progress they had made in their construction of their own political might. With his oath of office, Vice President Pence became both the free marketer's hero and the most successful Christian supremacist in American history. Most of Pence's life had been preparation for this moment, and possibly one more. His lifelong goal, set when he was a boy, was the Oval Office itself. Remarkably, he had reached this point by tying his fate to Donald J. Trump, a man whose immorality in the form of lying, cheating, and deceiving in every aspect of his life, from his marriage to his businesses, had made him a living exemplar of everything that Christianity and conservatism abhorred. However, this record also suggested that Pence was more likely to assume the highest office in the land than most vice presidents who had come before. To put it bluntly, Trump was vulnerable to impeachment. If this occurred, Pence would see the hand of God at work in his elevation to the presidency. In the meantime, he would wait and watch. On Inauguration Day, with Pence looking on, a slightly stooped Donald Trump stepped forward when it was his turn to face the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, John Roberts. Beside Trump stood his wife, Melania, the former fashion model, who held two Bibles, Lincoln's and Trump's own. At the stroke of noon, the president-elect raised his right hand and placed his left on the Bibles. As he did this, Trump's family members and hundreds of political and government figures strained to see the moment. Trump and Pence were a study in contrast. At age 58, Pence appeared trim, perhaps even athletic, and could have passed for a man 10 years younger. His jacket was neatly buttoned, his hands were clasped at his waist, and his smooth face was set in a half smile. Mere feet away, in sum, he resembled a small-town pastor, or maybe even a funeral director. Mere feet away, a stern-faced 70-year-old Trump stood with his coat hanging open like a caftan to reveal a long red necktie. Despite much cosmetic intervention, he looked old and tired. At the conclusion of the presidential oath, which had been voiced by 44 presidents before him, Trump said the words, "So help me God," and accepted the congratulations of those closest to him with a thin-lipped, toothless grin. He then delivered a 15-minute speech replete with distortions and falsehoods that were his trademark. He declared that America was awash with crime and despair and under constant attack.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, it's a brand new week in Trumpistan. Maybe we should change the name of the country. I don't know. We're increasingly resembling a third world country. Trump rambling on television about executive orders, and it's just, I couldn't avoid it. Anyway, welcome to the chilling stage of tyranny where the tyrant tightens his grip. This is what's happening right now. Also, revenge, retribution, and manipulation. Democrats in Maryland are going to consider gerrymandering too, Wes Moore has come out and said so. And Trump is threatening more retribution. Plus, he now is threatening Chris Christie, of all people. And, of course, he's threatening Chicago. Our wannabe dictator-in-chief is just gone over the fascist edge. Also, are Trump and Bob Kennedy planning to ban COVID vaccines within months? Is our science all now built on conspiracy theories? It's wild. In the second hour of our program, Kilmar Garcia has been given a Sophie's choice by the Trump administration. They're literally stalking this guy. And due process, forget it. Now it looks like maybe even today, he was arrested this morning. He showed up for his meeting at ICE, and boom, off he goes. And they say that they're shipping him off to Uganda. I've been to Uganda. I've been to Uganda several times. I worked in Uganda.
It is an English-speaking country, by the way. One of the comments people made is he doesn't speak the language. Well, I guess he mostly speaks Spanish, so. But not good. Anyhow, we'll get into that in the second hour of the program. And also in the second hour of the program, a Gavin alert. He's released his own MAGA flag and MAGA-style merch. Only it's a Gavin flag. Make America Gavin again. And Gavin may be up for the Nobel Peace Prize, really? Also, an Epstein victim is ready to speak from the grave. That's going to make it tough for Trump to threaten her, like he has so many of the other victims, or women who have accused him anyway of sexual assault. In the third hour of the program, if the Democrats embrace Medicare for all, could that be the magic bullet to beat Trump? And is Trump a communist at heart? In the third hour of our program. So we got a lot to talk about here. And of course, there's a lot going on. Welcome to the chilling stage of tyranny, where the tyrant tightens his grip. Trump is now raiding homes and launching investigations into political insiders who publicly criticize him. Other former Trump administration officials are clamming up. We've entered the phase of this transition to fascism where objections to his actions are chilled. Remember Jade Helm in 2015? If you're not a right-winger, you probably don't. I mean, we talked about it briefly on this program back in 2015, but the Obama administration was running this, it was called a Joint Realistic Military Training Operation, an RMT, Realistic Military Training. And it was by a bunch of elite forces, the Green Berets, the Navy SEALs, the Air Force Special Ops, the Marine Corps forces, the 82nd Airborne, and some interagency partners. And it was in 7 states, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. Primarily, it was run out of Elgin Air Force Base in Florida. And the whole goal of this thing was to train troops in basically urban combat. What's it going to be like if you go into Afghanistan or you go into Iraq and you have to, fight in a big city? But it made the right-wingers absolutely hysterical. Mention Jade Helm to any right-winger, to any Trump humper, they will go, oh my God. This is what Newsweek wrote about it. Nina Burley was writing for Newsweek. This was 3 months before the 2016 elections, by the way. This was just another, rant about Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton they're going to create FEMA camps and they're going to put troops in our streets and they're going to, well, here, this is the exact quote. Quote, this is Newsweek, 2016, before the election. Quote, according to them, them being, of course, the right-wingers, the people on the screechers on Fox News, America's 1,500 hate radio stations, quote, according to them, President Barack Obama would martial law and cancel or nullify the election in November, after which his Federal Emergency Management Agency will disarm and herd all the anti-abortion, religious right, gun-owning, homeschooling folks into secret FEMA camps that his administration has spent years preparing. And by the way, this wasn't just the Alex Jones crowd going nuts about Jade Helm. As Burley noted, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said that, quote, Obama's Department of Defense was preparing to invade his state during a training exercise called Jade Helm. Well, here we are. Can you imagine if Obama had actually taken over some blue cities? I mean, if he had actually done that? The highest murder rates in the country are in the highest crime rates are Memphis, Tennessee has the highest violent crime rate in the country, and the highest homicide rate per capita is Jackson, Mississippi. Do you hear Trump talking about going into Tennessee or Mississippi? No, I wonder why. But again, can you imagine if Obama had federalized D.C., had taken over, say, Memphis and Jackson, had taken over some red cities and declared a crime emergency? You would have every militia in America out with their AR-15s in the streets. Republicans would be saying that Obama had declared a civil war. Now, which raises the question, where are they now? I mean, are they just fine with it as long as it's a right-wing takeover of America? Apparently. Apparently fascism is just fine with these guys. Lev Parnas, who has been a guest on this program several times, he writes a Substack newsletter, Lev Remembers, and he's referencing the Bolton, John Bolton's home being invaded by the FBI last Friday. Bolton, also a regular guest on this program. And Todd Blanche's interview of Ghislaine Maxwell, he calls that chilling. He said, this week what we witnessed was not just news, it was a setting, a preview of what's to come. Full takeover, full dictatorship. Up until now, we've been watching theatrics, a carefully choreographed script between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. But this week, the theatrics ended and reality set in. And then Parnas goes on to say, you know, well, I'll just quote him. He says, I'm not a journalist. I'm not a pundit. I'm not giving you theories. I was one of them. I was inside the cult. I was in Trump's shadow diplomacy. I was sent to Eastern Europe to deliver his first quid pro quo to Zelensky. I know these people. I know the inner circle, and I know exactly how far they're willing to go. Let me add, this morning, Lev Parnas, just an hour or so ago, published this. He writes, here's what I've been told. Witkoff and Trump discussed that Putin has assured him that he will complete his takeover of Donbass and several other key territories within the next 2 to 3 weeks. The plan is simple. Trump waits quietly while Russia moves. Then he steps in with what he will call a peace offer to Zelensky. That offer will be a hardline ceasefire, freeze the war exactly where it stands after Russia has seized more land. When Zelensky refuses, as any leader of any sovereign nation would, Trump will claim he tried, he'll walk away, use that as an excuse to normalize relations with Russia, reopen business and trade, and greenlight American investments with Russian oligarchs. I think he's probably right. And so, you know, scholars of fascism like Jason Stanley and Timothy Snyder have already left America for Canada. They know that once a fascist takes over an elected government, it's damn hard to dislodge them. I mean, just ask Russians, Hungarians, Turks, Indians, North Koreans, Peruvians, Venezuelans, Brazilians, Chileans, or Egyptians, all countries that were once democratic that are now being run by Trump-like autocrats. Meanwhile, he's putting troops into our cities, he's cowing the press, he's defunded NPR and PBS, he's rewriting history in our museums, he's arresting Democratic legislators and judges, he's going after high-profile Democrats, from Adam Schiff to Letitia James. He's threatening to seize voting machines in next year's elections. He's intimidating major law firms and universities. He's sucking up to Putin and other dictators as if they, and not Western Europe, are our allies. And it's really increasingly clear that we're no longer at risk of he's going to turn America fascist. We're already fully in the midst of it, as I write about in my next book, which will be out in a couple of weeks, The Last American President, a broken man, a corrupt party, and a world on the brink. And the economic side of this is also unmistakable. Trump is going full national socialist, buying stakes or taking over stakes in American companies. This last week, it was 10% of Intel. And this morning, in his rambling, incoherent press conference in the White House, he said he wants to do more of these kind of deals. I mean, this is the kind of thing that Republicans used to scream about. When Obama nationalized part of the big three automakers during the Bush crash to keep them from going bankrupt, Newt Gingrich said it was a disaster. He called it socialism. But this is what's going on. These guys remember, particularly the toadies around Trump, the Bondis and Noams and Patels, they know that John Mitchell, Richard Nixon's attorney general, went to prison for 18 months. They don't want to suffer that fate, and they know that the way to avoid suffering that fate is to never let Democrats ever have power again in America at the federal level. I mean, even protest is being stifled. Have you seen any student demonstrations? Students are afraid to show up in the streets. They're getting kicked out of school. They're losing their loan. If you got $100,000 in student debt, you're not going to blow that by going out in the streets and protesting. Now, thankfully, we've got Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker and a handful of other Democrats, AOC, Bernie, who are standing up and speaking out. We need a lot more. Thomas Paine, back in 1776, said, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman, because tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. The same applies today. The right wing in America, used to scream about Jade Helm being a prelude to tyranny. They were wrong then, but today their silence in the face of actual tyranny tells you everything that's going on. This time the danger is real. Tag, we're it. This is the chilling phase of fascism. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be right back with more of the news of the day and your calls. Stay with us. And welcome back. And let's see here, Ed in Los Angeles. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Hi, my name's Eddie Ed O'Brien. I do comedy. I like to say two Eds are better than one. So I do some political comedy. But the reason I called is I wondered, the other day I was looking at my phone and there's a White House comment line, and I thought to myself, I don't feel safe in calling the White House comment line. Do you, Tom? Is anybody?
I doubt they're going to come after you, unless you leave a message that, of something illegal, threatening somebody or something like that. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Well, maybe not. Here's a joke. The Republicans believe that President Obama was president because he was president for 2 terms. That was black reparations.
That was what?
Black reparations.
Oh, yeah. I've not heard that.
Anyway, that's what. Okay, yeah, because I made it up. I do political comedy. Anyway, I love your show. I'm glad I was able to get on it, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't. I was going to call it. And my wife said, "Don't do it." So
the comment
only
line,
the White House comment line. Yeah.
The only reason I can think of for not calling the White House comment line is that they probably don't even bother transcribing their calls any longer. I'm guessing if you really want to have some impact, you need to call your member of Congress and your 2 senators at 202-224-3121. That's what I would be doing. Ray,
Yes,
Ed, thank you for the call. Ray in Hollywood. Hey, Ray, what's up?
Hi there, Tom, and good morning to everyone. I like to talk about something called absolutism. Okay. And I think this attack on the press and attack on disagreement is absolutism as far as the definition. And you can find that online, by the way. And I think absolutism is fraudulent, sick, and irrational. Because in the world, for sure, there's different points of view and different opinions. And there's criticism against government wrongdoing. And in a lawsuit, you have 2 sides to the situation. So, again, absolutism is fraudulent.
So, clarify this, Ray. Carl Jung said that there are basically 2 kinds of people, judges and perceivers. Judges see the entire world in black and white. There's nothing in between. Perceivers see all the shades of gray. Is that what you're talking about?
Excuse me.
Carl Jung suggested that some people only see binary choices. They see everything in black or white. He called them judgers. He said that there's another category of people, which is more like 80% of the population, that are able to see the shades of gray in between, extremes of an argument. And he called them perceivers. Is that what you're talking about? People moving into the judging category?
Well, absolutism, and there's a definition online, is a political system where a monarch or a ruler holds complete, unrestrained power.
I see.
And not subject to legal challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's absolute power. Yeah, I get it. Or rule by fiat or rule by decree. Well, that's what Trump is trying to move toward. He signed a bunch more executive orders this morning. Ray, thank you. Well said. 22 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Way back in 1964, when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Republicans started this rant about how the election of 1960, Jock Kennedy stole that election, and there's voter fraud in America. And it became a thing. They started this thing called Operation Eagle Eye. William Rehnquist was running it in Arizona, trying to intimidate Hispanics and African Americans into not voting, essentially. They've now used this claim that non-citizens are voting, this voter fraud claim, in virtually every red state to make it harder to vote, to purge people off the voting rolls, to make people's votes not counted with their exact signature matches. It's a scam. It's a grift that they've been running for 60 years, and the American media won't call them out on it. There's a whole piece about it called Trump and the GOP's Big Lie 2.0 over at HartmannReport.com. Please check it out. You'll find it fascinating.
Whispers in the shadows, marching in the street, power in the iron fist, silence in the beat, voices fading quietly, drowned by the fear, history repeating, the warnings crystal clear. They said it could never happen, not in this land, but freedom slips like water right through our hands. The chilling stage of tyranny is here. The window's closing fast, the end is near. Once the tyrant grips, he won't let go. This is the fight we can't afford to lose. You know. Prophets of democracy packed and moved away. Scholars saw the writing, but few dared to stay. The press is shackled tighter, the truth erased with lies, and protest turns to ashes under armored skies. They warned of FEMA camps, they laughed in the past, but the real chains are the ones that hold us now. At last, the chilling stage of tyranny is here.
Meanwhile, Maryland Governor Wes Moore says he's now going to join California in considering redistricting. This is the kind of energy that Democrats need if we're going to stand up against this chilling stage of fascism. I mean, Republicans have rigged the game for years, right? They've gerrymandered Ohio, Wisconsin, Texas, Florida, North Carolina. I mean, you've got states that vote 50-50, Democrat, Republican, and send 80% of their congressional delegation as Republicans, 70, 80%, over and over again. Democrats are saying enough. God bless you, Wes Moore. You know, step by step, we've got to do this. Meanwhile, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, has something to say about Trump sending troops to Chicago. I'll tell you about that after the break.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
27 minutes past the hour, back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is A History of the World in 6 Plagues, How Contagion, Class, and Captivity Shaped Us from Cholera to COVID-19. Book was published in March of this year. This is from the prologue. I rarely enjoy, and it's by Edna Bonhomme, B-O-N-H-O-M-M-E. I believe that's how it's pronounced. She writes, I rarely enjoy an entire night of rest without interruption. I fixate on the whorls of brass on a light fixture or a stray fly. Like many insomniacs, my angst has an origin story. It began when I was a child and is bound in my memories like a cankerous sore. In the summer of 1988, after nearly a week of high temperatures and perennial diarrhea, my parents, both in their early 20s, took me in desperation to Jackson Memorial Hospital, the same public infirmary in Miami where my mother would later work as a janitor. After a series of tests, I was diagnosed with typhoid fever. I spent a month there at 4 years old, lonely and scared, curled up small in a hospital bed that felt huge. The stale air wafted through my nose while the EKG machine rattled through the night. I heard the buzzing of the fluorescent lights as the stiffness of the bed pressed up against my body. Unable to swallow without feeling nauseous, I could barely eat. According to my aunts and parents, I nearly died. Hyperbole is a familiar register for my elders, their dramatic tales making for entertaining family gatherings. But for once, their alarm at my sluggishness and flushed skin made sense. I was seriously ill. Unmoored from myself with a deep headache, my throat burned and my cough echoed throughout the room. When my relatives visited me, I skulked along the ward corridors, dragging my tiny legs slowly from the bedroom into the playroom. But the worst part was that when the nurses arrived with my favorite fruit, mango, I barely touched the plate. Instead, I glared at them with repulsion and at every other nutrient with irritation as I crumbled into a state of fatigue. What had started as a fever turned into a curse that my miniature body, mind, and spirit could no longer bear. My hospitalization stretched on primarily to get me to a place of health, but also to ensure that I could not infect others. I lost weight. As each day turned into night, I heard the sounds of the nurses as they moved around, shaken. My decline, my high temperature, and eventually my progress were left to the staff. Most of the time, they confined me to the bed in the room, unable to move as I pleased or join the games of my friends who I could see in the playground in my mind's eye. In my confinement, I felt like I was outside of myself. This month of hospitalization has had a life of its own in the years afterward. In the early hours of the morning, as I am laying in bed, the early memories of captivity returns. I am reminded of the waves of tears that flowed down my when my parents would leave and the sense of being trapped. When one is bedridden with a life-threatening disease or a chronic illness, one might find oneself obsessed with death. I was too young to understand the cause or nature of my condition, but had a sense that death was something foreboding, a darkness hanging over me. Restless, I craved climbing the coconut tree in our backyard and searching for ladybugs and my cousins. My fear was driven by the conviction that I would not wake up the next time I closed my eyes. More than my parents' embraces and promises of safety muttered in Creole, or the icy ball of the nurse's thermometer, the hospital bed was the most consistent thing I felt. The details of this period are less significant than the impact it created, how 3 decades later I feel irrevocably out of place when entering a hospital. I absorbed the hushed voices, the pastel-colored walls, and the Spartan hospital gowns. I could hear the doctors' voices, but could not understand what they were saying. The syllables rattled through the air, meaningless sounds. Barely able to articulate my thoughts in either Creole or English, I was a callow girl lost in a room of tubes and bright lights, obsessed with my plans to escape. I couldn't see past my hospital bedroom, my mom, in the sense that my restraint was my punishment for pushing a friend off the slide, as I recall doing in my local playground shortly before I was taken ill. All I could do was count the number of times my parents came per day, or the moments the nurses came to feed me. I had no control. I ate, where I went, when I moved. Even when I imagined playing with my friends at the beach or pictured the sugarcane stalks in our backyard, my thoughts were dimmed by the atmosphere. When others entered the room, even my family, I felt they were surveying me, taking the measure of the bed, the equipment, and my body. Now I find that a bed, even when lying next to a friend or lover, is also a place of unease. Will they disappear in the middle of the night once I'm asleep, or will their presence comfort me?
For months after my infection with typhoid fever, I felt the profound injustice of being forced indoors and restrained, unable to feel the humidity, the humid, heavy Miami wind blowing on my face, or watch the luxury sailboats with sunburned passengers splash across the calm water of Biscayne Bay. I learned how to sit still with my thoughts. Even today, hospitals agitate me, not because of their stiff chairs or drab walls or even their bland art, but because of my dread. Medical institutions remind me of my most profound envy for people who can sleep a whole night without interruption or harm. In the late 19th century, typhoid fever was one of the most prevalent diseases in America. When Mary Mallon, popularly known as Typhoid Mary, was identified as the asymptomatic carrier of the disease, physicians believed she had infected families in New York City for whom she cooked. The book is A History of the World in 6 Plagues. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
He came like a prophet with a spray on tan, sold damnation in a baseball cap, built a pulpit out of Twitter rage. Now the spotlight's burning down his cage. Fox lit the fire, Murdoch fanned the flame. Now they're tossing matches, dodging blame. JD's waiting in the wings, eyes on the crown, but a cult don't rise when the preacher's down. This is the death rattle of a cult. Red hats turn, fists clenched in revolt. Truth cracks through like a rifle ball. Now the faithful curse what they once exalted. Death rattle of a cult. True believers drank deep from the stream of hate and hope in QAnon dreams. Facilitators made bank on the ride, but you can't grift a ghost when the soul's gone dry. Epstein's ghost still whisper in the files, eyes wide shut on pedo miles. Now the walls are closing, the lies unwind. Even Judas Vance wants a piece of the shrine.
Welcome back, 36 minutes past the hour. Trump is manufacturing a crisis to attack Chicago, according to both the governor and the mayor, Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. Pentagon officials, this is from Fox News, Pentagon officials confirmed to Fox News that up to 1,700 men and women of the National Guard were poised to mobilize in 19 states. J.B. Pritzker says, and I quote, Trump is abusing his power. Normally, the National Guard is under the authority of the states. This is back when they were putting the Constitution together. Jefferson and his allies, shall we say, although it was kind of a motley crew. I mean, it included people who weren't his allies, like Alexander Hamilton. But anyhow, he made the argument that having a federal army standing during times of peace could be a dangerous thing. We should have a navy because we have, our borders are principally the oceans. But having a standing army is not a good idea. And so when he became president, there were several 100,000 men in our army, and he cut that down to around 6,000, which turned out to be a big problem.
He was president from 1801 to 1807, and March of 1807. And what happened after he left the White House and was replaced by his protege, James Madison, was that the British and the Canadians, invaded us. But anyhow, going back, when they were putting the Constitution together to avoid having a standing army, because this historically in Europe had been the way that military coups had happened. The suggestion was, let's have each state have a militia, and then during a time of national emergency, the president can call up those state militias. But each state should have its own militia, and that's why the Second Amendment was written the way it is, in order to guarantee a well-regulated militia, blah-de-blah. And so, the bottom line is the militias, the National Guards, are supposed to be responding to the governor unless there is a state of national emergency, like we've been invaded by Canada or Mexico, or, on our coasts. Well, there is no state of national emergency, although Trump has declared, I believe, 12 national emergencies now. But Pritzker says he's abusing his power. And if anything, Trump has created a national emergency. And Hakeem Jeffries says, I strongly support the statement that was issued by Governor Pritzker, making clear that there's no basis, no authority for Donald Trump to potentially try to drop federal troops into the city of Chicago. This is the third America, by the way. Mayor Johnson said that shootings had dropped by almost 40% in his city in the last year alone. He and Pritzker said any plan by the White House to override local authority and deploy troops would be illegal. Meanwhile, we're hearing that Bob Kennedy wants to ban the COVID vaccine within months. Now, this is not official. This is from a highly placed source close to the Kennedy family. And this is Dr. Asim Malhotra, a British cardiologist who has repeatedly said that the vaccines are more dangerous than the virus. And he told the Daily Beast that Kennedy's stance is shared by, quote, influential members of President Donald Trump's family, which would probably be, Don Jr.? This article that was published at the Daily Beast says, and I quote, the Trump administration will move to pull the COVID vaccine off the U.S. market within months. Now, again, not official. And the new vaccine, to the best of my knowledge, is not out. I'm more than 6 months past my last COVID shot, but I've been waiting for the new formula, right? And I understand it's supposed to come out early in September. And I was going to get my flu shot and my COVID shot at the same time when that happens. I don't have any short-term travel plans where Louise and I aren't going anywhere for a while. So, but anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens here. So what's on your mind? Pat in Chicago. Hey, Pat, thanks for listening to WCPT. What's up?
Yeah, I had a couple of suggestions. One was on the voter suppression, and Democrats need to get their act together and have short 30-second commercials, especially in the red states, telling people to check, especially women, that they're still on the voting rolls.
Yeah.
Have a SAVE Act up there. You didn't vote for this, register, vote Democratic top to bottom. And then we also need to consider having a nationwide no-shop day, an Awaken Wednesday, a boycott. They did it once, but the stores they shook it off. They said like it was bad weather day.
Yeah.
But they need to remember that the Montgomery boycott of the buses, that took over a year. So they need to keep doing it every Wednesday. And Target especially closed 3 stores here in Chicagoland, and one of them, the then mayor even said, please leave the store. It has the grocery store, the pharmacy. They'll be in a food desert. Target closed it anyway and then turned around and asked, can we build another one up on the north side, the commonly white area? Lastly, for Pritzker, he needs to have people send him an email. Governor Pritzker, send him an email, because Trump said there were all these red hat ladies asking, come save Chicago. Didn't happen. We did have 75,000 people protest in June, I believe it was. They came out and protested. And if you have a boycott and you're at home, you're safe. If you don't shop just on Wednesday, you don't buy cash, you don't go online, this is something safe that people can do that are afraid.
Yeah, no, I get it, Pat. I don't, the Montgomery bus boycott, you had virtually all the black churches, coordinating that effort. And, along with Reverend King's organization and SNCC and a few others. I don't see that happening nationwide right now, but I like your idea. I also think that Donald Trump sending troops into Chicago. In D.C., he arguably has a legal authority to do that because D.C. is not a state; it's a federal city. But Chicago is is part of Illinois, which is an independent state. And I think this is a clear violation of the Constitution. And I personally believe that what Trump is hoping for is violence, so that he will then have an excuse to really crack down. I mean, this is something that Richard Nixon really pioneered back in the early 70s, late 60s. And people have to be very, very careful. Pat, thank you for the call. Thanks. It's nice hearing from you. Thank you. Calvin in Grove City, Ohio. Hey, Calvin, what's on your mind?
Yeah. So what'd you say about Roger?
Say what? Calvin? Calvin?
Okay, I'll talk. Thanks.
I'm not hearing Calvin. Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, Kenyatta, what's on your mind today? Kenyatta?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, your voice was going in and out. So what? Let's try it again. What's up?
All right. Listen, I want to rap to you for a minute.
Okay.
So no, seriously. Mm-hmm. Now, let me just say this, because I got to give you a couple of disclaimers, and I'll be quick because I know how to conduct myself on your air. I don't like rap music. I don't think it's music, but that's just a disclaimer. Okay. There is, but rap music is a thing, and it's been a thing now for several decades. Mm-hmm. There is a rap artist that was very famous, I'm sure you've heard of, that was murdered by the name of Tupac Shakur.
Yeah.
And he wrote a song called Ain't Nothing But a Gangster Party. And growing up in Los Angeles, by the way, another disclaimer, I was never part of a gang, as you know. Mm-hmm. My father was a drill instructor in the Marine Corps, and I was more afraid of him, thugs in the neighborhood, and I was an only child. I'd take my chances with them as opposed to my dad. So I was never in gang culture, but I grew up around it. And the Crips wore blue bandanas. The Bloods, which actually started out being a gang called the Family, which later turned into the Bloods, wore red rags. And when I hear these red states and blue states, and then I juxtapose that with Trump's thuggery, like Tupac said, ain't nothing but a gangster party. So having said that, I think that the Democrats, and I'm very serious with this, Trump has been, how he does this, I don't know. He comes up with these inane, kindergarten, just stupid brandings, and they stick. Alligator Alcatraz.
Right.
Make America.
So, Kenyatta, if you want to get to your rep, I have a minute and a half here to a hard break. So
okay. I'm getting there.
Okay.
It's just fascinating how he does this. So I've got, on a serious political side, a slogan for the Democrats. Democrats need to separate themselves. And I think that America's never been great for lots of us in this country. Its promise has not been fulfilled for a lot of us in this country. I think Democrats need to embrace a slogan called Recognizing America's Promise. RAP, R-A-P, Recognizing America's Promise.
Okay.
To kind of convey that you know what I'm talking about? So, as Trump is sending troops into Baltimore, and he's going to Chicago, D.C., we're going to get more in Los Angeles. He's taking aim on blue cities and blue states.
Oh, I think he's getting ready for the elections.
No doubt about it. So what I just wanted to say that I think that slogan would be a powerful counterpoint to MAGA or whatever the heck that is. And that's a wrap, Tom.
Oh, so that's your rap. I thought you were going to rap on the air.
No.
There's some great poetry, you know. There's some great rap poetry. I don't think of it so much as music as I do poetry. Although I always thought of Bob Dylan more as poetry than music too. And Leonard Cohen.
When I said that's a rap, that's the one with the W in front. See, I was being cute.
Okay.
Man.
Completely misunderstood. Okay, well, here's that break that I couldn't stop. Kenyatta, it's always so nice to hear from you. Keep writing over on Substack. I'm loving your newsletter.
Thanks, man.
Good talking to you.
Bye.
It's 48 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Philip in Glencoe, Illinois. Hey, Philip, thanks for listening on the Thom Hartmann app. What's up?
Hi, Tom. Yeah, just yesterday, someone sent me that excellent piece you wrote about how Gavin Newsom is really taking control of this narrative, and how powerful you think it is. And I agree. It seems like for the first time, the Democrats are on offense, and the Republicans are on defense, and they're responding, which is great. So what I'm looking at is that I think it's really important now for the Democrats to take a look at how Gavin's done this, and what he's done is he's started a narrative. So it's not like he's jumping in anywhere and trying to, wrest control of it. He started it, and now they're responding to it. And that's one of the things that the Dems really need to do. They need to start narratives, and then they need to create ones that they can then show videos of what they're doing. So it looks like Dems are taking action. Because the piece that you wrote is great. It really spells out the thinking and the change that needs to go on in the Democratic organization. And I was actually at a meeting a few days ago with Ken Martin, and he was presenting in front of a room full of people here where I live, and did say pretty much that. They know they need to be doing that. And so the question is, how do they get that message out? Right. And how do they do it in a way that's impactful?
Right.
They do know they need to get into the social media space better.
Yeah.
So one of the ideas I have several ideas on videos or narratives that they could start, and one of them would be to have people sign the Declaration of Independence and do this, let's say, do it on video. Pretty much with the idea that the main thing is they're signing a document that says all men are created equal.
Well, it also has a half a dozen, at least, indictments of George III that apply today. That apply to Trump.
Yeah, and actually, what
show
would
trials,
make this really impactful?
Tariffs.
Yeah, and so if you get people signing this declaration that says that all men are created equal, you could actually, especially Gavin Newsom started it. So if you had him sitting at a desk like Trump does when he signs these executive orders, and have him be the first signer, and then he hands the pen to somebody and they sign it, and then you have that person pass the pen off camera, and now you have people around the country who, as you compile these little videos, they're grabbing the pen and they're signing it.
No, it sounds like a really cool kind of national trend, Philip. I encourage you to start it. Social media is available to you, too. Great suggestion. I've got to run, but thanks for the call. And thanks for listening to us on the Thom Hartmann application, available in the Google Play Store and the Apple, whatever you call it, App Store. 52 minutes past the hour. Our daily song is now available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of other platforms. Just look for songs by Louise and Thom Hartmann. Check it out. Donald Trump lost, voter suppression won in 2024. That's the headline over at HartmannReport.com, and just a brilliant article written by Greg Palast, exclusively for the Hartmann Report. He writes, Trump lost. That is, if all legal voters were allowed to vote, if all legal ballots were counted, Trump would have lost the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Vice President Kamala Harris would have won the presidency with 286 electoral votes. And if not for the mass purge of voters of color, if not for the mass disqualification of provisional and mail-in ballots, if not for the new mass vigilante challenges in swing states, Harris would have gained at least another 3.5 million votes, topping Trump's popular vote tally by 1.2 million. Greg brings us the numbers. He lays it out. You can read it over at HartmannReport.com. Absolutely free. It's titled Trump Lost, Vote Suppression Won at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
There's a price on your freedom. There's a toll at the gate. Where the courts once stood open, now billionaires wait. They've locked the doors tight, put a bond on your plea. If you're fighting the tyrant, it ain't gonna be free.
54 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls. Dean in Vancouver, Washington. Hey, Dean, what's on your mind today?
Hello, neighbor. How's things going over there?
Just on this side of the river, they're doing just fine. What's up?
Did you guys get your walk this weekend?
Saturday morning we went out to we went to Forest Park, couldn't find a place to park, and so we went down to the Lower McKay Trail and hiked that. Sunday morning, just couldn't get started. How about you?
Okay. Well, no, I'm. You're talking to an old guy here. I can't do that. I'd love to. I used to walk all the time, but I'm not in that position anymore. I've got Velchi. I really enjoyed your part on Velchi yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And the thing that I'm called about was false arrest. And I know you can't tell me real easily, maybe, but I don't understand it at all. How come we haven't got lawyers standing in line? So every time one of these guys gets arrested and hasn't done anything, can't they sue for that?
Well, there used to be a half a dozen major law firms with like thousands of lawyers who took on Democratic cases and worked for the Obama administration and sued Republicans and all that kind. Trump has attacked all of them, and several of them have just rolled over, and they're now doing right-wing work, and they're refusing to take left-wing clients. So it's getting harder and harder to find a lawyer. I called around like crazy the last time I left the country in anticipation of being stopped at the border on the way back. And it took some time, and and I ended up finally hooking up with Danny Savalas, the CNN TV lawyer or MSNBC TV lawyer, but who's a good guy. But these days can be tough.
Okay, one more little thing, and it's none of my friggin' business. So tell me if you think so. How did you get out from the draft? How did you miss the draft?
Oh, there were a lot of us who just never got drafted. I just never got drafted, Dean.
You lucky son of a gun! I dodged the draft. I dodged the draft by joining the Navy.
Yeah. Well, I had friends who did. Yeah, and other people who didn't. I was a student for a while, and then they went to the lottery, and my number just didn't come up. Dean, thanks for the call. I got to run. It's 57 minutes past the hour. By the way, I didn't have a doctor say that I had bone spurs.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and video media online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also a podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Unsettling Truths, the ongoing dehumanizing legacy of the doctrine of discovery by Mark Charles and Soon Chan Ra. This is from chapter 1. You cannot discover lands that are already inhabited. I, Mark, said this almost under my breath as I walked past a line of men dressed as Spanish sailors from the 1490s. I was in front of Union Station in Washington, D.C., near the massive statue of Christopher Columbus overlooking the United States Capitol. Every Columbus Day, there's an official ceremony in this plaza honoring Columbus as the discoverer of America. I had stumbled upon this ceremony by accident the year prior. There were a few non-natives holding signs and protesting the ceremony, but nothing very disruptive. I went back the following year primarily out of curiosity. I wasn't intending to protest, nor did I want to make a scene. As I walked up behind this group of men dressed as Spanish sailors, the words just came out of my mouth. You cannot discover lands already inhabited. As I walked further down the line, I said it again, this time a little louder. You cannot discover lands already inhabited. As I continued walking, I came to the front of the line where a group of men dressed in suits were standing. I repeated myself, making sure they could hear me. You cannot discover lands already inhabited. Suck it up, was the reply I heard as I kept walking. By this time, I'd walked around the statue and reached the front where a small stage had been erected and chairs set up for people to watch the ceremony. It hadn't started yet, but more than half the audience was seated waiting for it to begin. So I stopped near the center, turned toward the crowd, and in a calm but loud voice I said to the people, you cannot discover lands already inhabited. That process is known as stealing, conquering, or colonizing. The fact that America calls what Columbus did discovery reveals the implicit racial bias of the country, that Native Americans are not fully human. Quickly, one of the white men dressed in a suit walked over and interrupted me. You are not welcome here, he said as he grabbed my arm and began walking me away. I attempted to explain the inappropriateness of both celebrating this holiday as well as hosting this ceremony, but instead of engaging in conversation, he threatened me with arrest and escorted me from the area. As I walked away from the gathering, I was amused at his words and the irony of their context. A white man participating in a public ceremony honoring Christopher Columbus as the discoverer of America, telling a native man he was not welcome in that space. How did a flawed assumption about the place of the indigenous population in U.S. society become normative? How are assumptions so deeply ingrained in the American psyche and imagination that dysfunctional and oppressive actions emerge? How did a dysfunctional idea and worldview form that allows for the displacement of native bodies? One of the explanations for the formation of this dysfunctional worldview is the doctrine of discovery. The doctrine of discovery is a set of legal principles that govern the European colonizing powers, particularly during the administration of indigenous land, regarding the administration. It is the primary legal precedent that still controls native affairs and rights, and international law formulated in the 15th and 16th centuries. From a theological perspective, the legal and political role of the doctrine of discovery is rooted in a dysfunctional theological imagination that shaped the European colonial settler worldview. The doctrine emerged from a series of 15th century papal bulls, which are official decrees by the Pope that carry the full weight of his ecclesiastical office. On June 18, 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued the papal bull Dum Diversus, which initiated the first set of documents that would compose the doctrine of discovery. The official decree of the Pope granted permission to King Alfonso V of Portugal, quote, to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens, Muslims, and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ wheresoever placed, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever, held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors the kingdoms, dukedoms, counties, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his or their use and profit. End of quote from Pope Nicholas's papal bull of 1452. Dum Diversus would identify the Saracens, a common term for Muslims at the time, and pagans, essentially identifying any non-Christians as others, as those who could be targeted for, quote, perpetual slavery. The papal bull intentionally used language that identified those outside the European Christian world and enforced the Western theological imagination of non-Europeans as other. The Portuguese took these ecclesiastical statements to heart and perpetrated the slave trade from the African continent to the European and the American continents. As a Christian ruler, the King of Portugal would have power endowed from the church to take possession of the other as slave labor from the continent of Africa. The pagan African body was just another commodity to be taken for the pleasure and profit of the European Christian body, the one made most fully in the image of God. In the January of 1454, Pope Nicholas authored another bull. The book is Unsettling Truths by Charles and Ra.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the second hour of our program. A lot to talk about here. The U.S. is trying to deport Kilmar Garcia to Uganda. This is nuts. Uganda has, I mean, this is just pure punishment, right? They basically said to him, we'll send you to Costa Rica. You know, Costa Rica has already said, we're more than happy to take him and we will not throw him in jail. He can build a life here. He can invite his American wife and his 3 American children down here and they can come live with him if they want. Everything will be fine, no problem. So the Trump administration says, if you stop making us look like a fool and plead guilty to crimes you did not commit, then we'll let you go to Costa Rica. But if you don't, we're going to send you to Uganda. Now, you know, I've been to Uganda. I've been to Uganda several times. I used to work for an international relief agency. I started a program in Uganda. In fact, if you Google my name in Uganda, you'll probably find the article that I wrote, I think it's over on wisdomschool.com, which was my diary from my first visit to Uganda. I went back several times, Gottfried Mueller, Horst von Heyer and I, and we set up a program in Uganda, which is still operating. Salem International, is the organization. This is a German relief agency I used to work for, and that I still support.
And, when I was there in 1980, 81, 82, but the first time I went in, it was after Idi Amin had just been evicted by the Tanzanians. They had invaded the country, and Idi Amin and about 10,000 of his soldiers fled through the north, through the Karamoja region, up to Saudi Arabia, where the Saudis built him a palace for him and his, I think it was 32 wives, and where he lived and finally ultimately died in Saudi Arabia, living like a king. But the guy was a butcher and a thief, which is pretty common with autocrats. Autocrats typically bleed their countries dry and enrich themselves hugely. I mean, you can see that right now with Trump, for example, and certainly with Putin and Orban and all these other guys. But Uganda is not a place that, it's a lot better now than it was in 1980. I can tell you that for sure. I haven't been back in a couple of decades, but I know the people who are working there now. I used to work with these people, and it's not a hellhole like South Sudan is, where I've also been, and which is also a place that Trump has already deported 8 people to. South Sudan is a genuine hellhole with some of the worst diseases in the world and no infrastructure. Uganda actually was a fairly well-developed country, but this is just pathetic. I mean, this is the Trump administration just kind of proving to the world that they're running America like a tin pot dictatorship. It used to be, with every other president in the past, at least to the best of my knowledge, that if something happened where the administration did something wrong, in this case, deporting Abrego Garcia to El Salvador in violation of, and he wasn't even a Venezuelan. It was supposed to be Venezuelans that they were deporting. They never did. And by the way, those Venezuelans who got deported to El Salvador, they went back to Venezuela, and in exchange for that, Venezuela released a bunch of prisoners to the United States, including a guy who murdered people in Spain with an axe, who Donald Trump let free and is now running around loose in Orlando or something. We've got an axe murderer running around loose that the Trump administration freed, but they want to send this guy who is like a plumber and a carpenter. They want to send him and the husband of an American woman, natural-born American, and the father of 3 American children. They want to send him to a hellhole prison, right, or to Uganda. It used to be that our government, when they made mistakes, would just say, "Oh, we made a mistake. We won't do that again." But no, under the Trump administration, never admit an error. This is Roy Cohn. I read about this in my new book, The Last American President. Trump was first mentored by his father, who was a psychopath, and then was mentored by Roy Cohn, who's also a psychopath. And he learned these strategies from these two men, lie easily and frequently, and eventually your lies will be considered truth, or enough people will believe them that it won't matter. Never admit that you did anything wrong. Never concede. Always attack. I mean, this is what's going on. But Gavin Newsom is poking holes in that, and God bless him. I mean, this is hysterical. I'm waiting for J.B. Pritzker to roll out his swag, and his memes. I doubt he'll do it. J.B. Pritzker's a little more buttoned up. But Gavin Newsom is just skyrocketing to the top of everybody's, I want him for president list in 2028, assuming that we still have elections. He's even got a new flag, a MAGA flag that says, "Make America Gavin Again," M-A-G-A, Make America Gavin Again. I love it. And they've got, they're doing a boat thing, where people are waving all these Gavin flags, and they've got this truck outfitted. In fact, on yesterday, Newsom posted on X, he said, "Many people are saying this is the greatest merchandise ever made." What are we talking about? Gavin is now selling Bibles for $100 that are made in the USA with union labor and autographed by Gavin. They are sold out right now, by the way. He's got a bright red hat that reads, "Newsom was right about everything." He's got another one that says, "Humility is overrated." Oh, geez. I mean, this is how you do it. Remember when Trump tweeted that Taylor Swift, he said Taylor Swift is not hot? Well, Gavin's got a new hat that says Trump is not hot. Meanwhile, Trump this morning in his rambling, semi-coherent press conference. By the way, the back of his hands, one hand has had this weird bruise on it for a while. The other hand now is all black and blue. There is a rumor going around, completely unsubstantiated to the best of my knowledge, that he's getting blood transfusions, apparently from children. But who knows? Who knows? I mean, this is a thing. This is actually a thing. There's several tech billionaires, you can Google it, who one of them actually had a child so that he could get blood transfusions from his child. Others are, buying them from children because apparently children have higher levels of human growth hormone and other, things that cause you to like bulk up and, well, children are growing, right? So I guess the question is, are Donald Trump's hands bruised because he's doing daily or weekly infusions of children's blood? Is that what's going on here? Inquiring minds want to know. Meanwhile, Congressman Eric Swalwell of California, just tweeted. He says, "I just talked to Trump in his rant this morning went off on how I've stopped 7 wars now. Last week it was 6. Now it's 7." Trump has not stopped any wars. I mean, let's just be real. But anyhow, he says, I just talked to some friends. This is Eric Swalwell. I just talked to some friends in Norway where the Nobel Prize is awarded. They're saying Nobel Newsom is all the buzz. Pack your bags, Gavin. You're going to Oslo. Poor Trump. Well, not poor. I mean, he's got the most powerful military in the world. He's made $3.5 billion just since he's been in office. His sons are getting richer than sin. I mean, it's insane. But the bubble may be about to burst. And I will tell you about that after the break. Have you heard about this new book, Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice? It's Virginia Giuffre's new book. And I believe that, not today, but sometime in the near future, we are going to have her co-author on. Is that true, Sean? That's my understanding. But I'll tell you about that right after the break, and then I'll pick up your calls. So stick around. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, exposing the con in conservative.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We're right back with more of the news of the day and your calls as we help you win the water cooler wars. Stay with us. And welcome back. Donald Trump just signed an executive order to cancel cashless bail in D.C. and other cities. I'm guessing he could do it in D.C. Again, it's a federal city, but I don't see how he could do it in other cities. But an awful lot of his executive orders have just been patently illegal or unconstitutional. They're immediately hit with lawsuits and blocked. But that doesn't stop him from doing it. He wants to be the rule by decree guy, and eventually I think he might get there if the Democrats don't stand up more vigorously. Dennis in Aptos, California. Hey, Dennis, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, the hypocrisy stinks to high heaven these days.
Yeah.
I've got something to say about Pritzker and Westmore and these other blue state governors. They need to tell their National Guard commanders, you disobey Trump's orders if he tells you to occupy cities. These Pritzker, Moore, all these guys need to do that.
Well, they're doing it through the courts. Newsom sued Trump for the and he won one and then he lost one, and it still hasn't gone to the Supreme Court. I'm sure that they're going to for as long as they can.
Oh, absolutely. But, they're not in Illinois yet, and they're not in Maryland. Well, they are in, I consider D.C. part of Maryland. It's within the boundaries. By the way, I just saw this thing
let me just toss something in here before you move on to another topic,
Sure.
Dennis. The big question
Well,
is
it's the
whether
same
Trump
topic.
is going to send a red state militia, civil patrol or National Guard into Chicago, or whether he's going to send the Illinois National Guard. Because Pritzker arguably controls the Illinois National Guard, but what happens if Kentucky decides that they'll send their National Guard? Now you're looking at something that is similar to a civil war.
I would say, yeah, you don't let them into the state. You block every road. You block any military base. You let them come in. But I want to say something going on just north of where you are in Olympia. I just found this out. This Muslim Indian American, who's been in this country 25 years, last name is Chaudhry. He went to his nationalization meeting this morning, court, whatever it is, and he's planning on running for the 9th seat, congressional seat in the state of Washington. Mm-hmm. Guess who was there at his nationalization meeting? Guess who was there? I don't
do guesses on the air.
ICE.
Oh, yeah, of course.
ICE.
Yeah, of course.
They nabbed him.
Yeah.
This is a guy he's a wounded veteran. He was in Iraq, he was in Afghanistan, and this is how Trump treats veterans.
Yeah, yeah.
He has them arrested if they're against him. Yeah, this guy was running as a Democrat. So who knows what's going to happen to that guy? Is he going to be on the next plane back to Mumbai?
Probably. Or South Sudan.
Yeah, who knows? I tell you, this stuff has to stop. If these, I live part-time in San Francisco now. If they send these goons to San Francisco, I'm there protesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there protesting.
Yeah, I get it, Dennis.
That's all there is to it.
I get it. There's going to,
right.
Trump is trying as hard as he can to recreate the late 60s, early 70s. He wants cities on fire. He wants riots. He wants a rationalization to bring out the military and declare a state of emergency and suspend elections. We'll see. Dennis, thanks for the call. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the capital right through to them. I remember my dad's Republican Party, the Republican Party of Dwight Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower, who ran on advocacy for democracy around the world, for a clean environment, for honest wages, for unions, for building infrastructure, for government balance spending, for peace in the world. This is from his 1956 campaign.
Eisenhower knows how to deal with the Russians. He has met Europe's leaders, has got them working with us. Elect the number one man for the number one job of our time. November 4th, vote for peace. Vote for Eisenhower. A paid bill.
Right. Vote for peace. That was, and now the Republicans are the party of, military boondoggles and corruption and hate and anti-union and everything, the opposite of everything Eisenhower stood for. Will the Republican Party survive this? What are they going to come back as? There's a whole op-ed about this titled Goodbye Liz Cheney over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
We said we're caught in the storm. The rich built their mansions. The people mourn. They bought the laws. They bought the courts. Now they're coming for the last of our rights, of course.
They tell us it's over, say there's nothing to do.
But the future is waiting on me and on you.
This is the choice before tyranny. Stand up, rise up, or fall on our knees. History's watching, the moment is near. Will we choose
choose courage or give in to fear. The billionaires.
So Virginia Giuffre is who has passed away. She committed suicide a few months ago. She left a note with her publisher saying that, quote, "In the event of my passing, I would like to ensure that Nobody's Girl," that's the title of the book, "is still released. I believe it has the potential to impact many lives and foster necessary discussions about these grave injustices." She sent the email on April 1st, and she committed suicide on April 25th. She has long said that she was flown from Florida to London by Epstein and Maxwell. Maxwell was a friend of Prince Andrew. They went to college together. And the pair had sex in Maxwell's Mews home, where they had been photographed earlier that night. And then there's 2 further allegations of her having sex with Prince Andrew at Epstein's New York home and his private island in the Caribbean. She also made claims against, quote, "other powerful and influential men that Epstein pimped her out to." We don't yet know who those men are. And the book will not be out until October, so we've got another 7-8 weeks to go before we find out what the story is here. But we will keep you up to date. We will keep you up to date. Wild stuff going on, huh? So what's on your mind today? Michael in Barrington, Illinois. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thanks. A little bit off the topic of today is Latin America, South America. You brought it up last Thursday when you mentioned Trump's sending a couple boats, maybe destroyers, whatever, to the coast of Venezuela.
Yeah, they arrived there over the weekend.
Yeah, what's he going to do? Shell Venezuela because of their cartels?
I don't know. He's playing into Maduro's hands. I mean, Maduro just mobilized, was it 40,000 troops or something like that? I mean, this is exactly what Maduro wants. The big guys are coming for us. I will defend you.
Yeah, that's silly. But the thing is that you turned me on to Financial Times, and last Tuesday they had a full-page article by 4 authors on, you may have seen it, on the cartels throughout Latin America that are becoming very, very strong by sending cocaine down the Amazon basin. And these countries did not include Venezuela. They include Colombia and Peru mainly, and Brazil. Excuse me. Brazil, by the way, Brazil is a democracy. You had it listed as along with Chile. They're democracies now.
No, the list that I made this morning was countries that have lost their democracies or experienced the loss of their democracies.
Yeah, sure.
And they did during Bolsonaro's reign. They got it back now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Those two, but the others are not democracies you listed. So
not any longer, sadly.
Even
India has slipped pretty badly.
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, the long article of 4 authors shipped cocaine to Europe. It's Europe that's getting the cocaine and is increasing so much that it's beyond that which is used in the United States. It's hard to tell, though.
Oh, that's interesting.
I thought the article was a little bit right of center myself. If you get a chance to read it.
I missed that. The Financial Times
really
itself is a little right of center, although they're not full fascists like Trump.
Yeah. And quickly, by the way, Michael Wolff, I'm so impressed with him. My sarcasm, by the way. Anyway, but finally, for an uplifting podcast, it's Good News for Lefties in America. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's a wonderful, short, 20-minute podcast every day, and you can get it on any podcast platform. And it's called Good News for Lefties. I really encourage people to listen to it. It's really quite good.
I'll check it out. Michael, are you on it?
Am I on the
podcast, or do you simply subscribe to it?
I subscribe to it.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate the endorsement. I'll check it out. Michael, thanks for the call, and thanks for listening to WCPT. We're hitting the bottom of the hour here, 27 minutes past the hour. I'll be back on the other side of the break with more of your calls. What's on your mind today? Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where despair is not an option. Get active. I'll be right back with your calls. today is the Seven Mountains Mandate by Matthew Bodie, exposing the dangerous plan to Christianize America and destroy democracy. We'll start with the introduction, the story of the mountains. The plan to Christianize America began 50 years ago with a vision from God, or so the legend goes. Bill Bright, the founder of a college campus evangelism organization, had just landed in Colorado in August of 1975 to participate in an event in Boulder. But something planted deep in his spirit had made Bright desperate to talk to Lauren Cunningham, a founder of another youth-oriented evangelism organization who was on vacation in Colorado. The vision from God that Bright had brought for Cunningham was a typed list of 7 influential areas of culture. If Christians could win these 7 areas for Christ, Bright said, the nation could be set right and return to its biblical origins. It would take a massive spiritual war, but ending the demonic control of these areas would have immense impact for the kingdom of God. The vision from God that Bright had brought for the Constitution, the problem was that God had placed Cunningham on a mountaintop near Durango on the other side of the state with no way to communicate. The man who had picked up Bright at the airport said he could get the two together. Someone got through to a ranger station in Durango, and then from there, someone on horseback found Cunningham's remote location. That man took Cunningham to a borrowed plane, which flew Cunningham to meet the man who had the urgent message from God. What Bright didn't know was that God had given Cunningham the same list, though his was sketched out on a legal pad. The two friends presented their lists to each other simultaneously. Cunningham later wrote, "Amazing coincidences like this happen all the time when Christians listen to the still small voice of the Holy Spirit." Over the years, the story of that 1975 meeting has been told many ways, accepted not merely as gospel, but a divine endorsement of the list that Bright and Cunningham created. Whatever the truth of the meeting, the list has become powerful spiritual lore passed down from one generation to another in the movement born from it. That movement is intent on destroying democracy by taking dominion in these 7 institutions: education, family, religion, government, business, media, and entertainment. Over the decades, many have made their mark on the list by envisioning different labels for it. While Bright and Cunningham spoke of areas of influence, others have called them gates, pillars, channels, and most commonly among the movement's supporters today, mountains. The preferred metaphor evolved over time, but the purpose of the list has remained the same: bring the kingdom of God to America by conquering each of these cultural domains. The story of the 7 Mountains movement told in this book is the story of those who inspired and shaped that 1975 list. It's also about how the list has come to dominate American political life in the 21st century without most Americans even having heard about it. This insidious victory is the work of a new generation of believers who have pushed it with more and more aggression, pushing us closer and closer to violence, threatening our society through their claim to divine urgency. In short, this is the story of how the list became a mandate. The spiritual energy behind this mandate pushed the list into the White House with the 2016 election of Donald Trump. From there, the movement exploded beyond the fringes of charismatic evangelicalism into larger institutions, influencers, and financial backers. To the handful of experts who have followed the movement for years, it was no surprise its supporters turned violent when the 2020 election didn't go the way they wanted, the way they say God wanted. This is where the movement has been headed. Yet even more frightening, since the 2021 insurrection at the Capitol, more Americans seemingly want what the 7 Mountains movement wants also. A June 2023 survey of 2,000 Americans estimated about 30% are open to the ideas associated with the 7 Mountains movement, such as things like the U.S. culture is fundamentally Christian, and Christian values should be solely and explicitly endorsed by the government. Another 2023 survey found a similar percentage of Americans either adhering to or sympathetic to these ideals. A second Trump administration only reinforces that. Of course, many of the Americans in those polls are the demographic most supportive of the mandate, the evangelicals. A 2024 survey showed that strong majorities of evangelicals agree broadly with the goals of the 7 Mountain movement. About 55% of evangelicals specifically agreed that,
quote, God wants Christians to stand atop the 7 mountains of society, end quote. The survey also showed that the percentage of Christian Americans who believe in the mandate increased from just under 30% to over 41% in just 1 year. The surveyors note that, quote, what not long ago seemed to be a marginal set of beliefs has become a dominant religious framework among American Christians, end quote. The 7 Mountains movement has been adopted across the religious right, even by leaders who may not share its theology, because their followers are being motivated by the mandate. For example, the 2022 National Day of Prayer Guide from the Southern Baptist Convention asks its congregants to pray for the 7 centers of influence. Beyond religion, the 7 Mountains movement has become so accepted in American society. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com.
What if I told you most
people in the Rust Belt
products
states
aren't just
know
a waste of
all
money? They're
about
loaded with
tariffs. They know
toxins
that
can lead
tariffs
to skin issues,
kept
heart
jobs.
problems.
Be a little more straightforward, because people, particularly in the industrial Midwest, or in the Rust Belt as we call it now, are not dumb. You know, they know what's going on. They know where we've been and how we got here. And I think it's pretty important to be talking about tariffs and what they are, how they work, and how they can bring manufacturing back home. I wrote a piece about it for Hartmann Report. It's titled, Why Trump is Wrong and Alexander Hamilton Was Right About Tariffs. And I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating at hartmannreport.com. Check it out.
With the match in D.C., now LA's in flames. Armored trucks rolling like it's some war game. Flags in the frame, choppers in the sky, but the Constitution bleeding and the truth. Called it law and order, what they meant was fear. And the boots on your doorstep say the end is near. Send in the Marines, let the rifles gleam. Make it look strength while you kill the dream. He don't want peace, he wants the scene. So roll the tanks and send in the Marines.
35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Calvin in Grove City, Ohio. Hey, Calvin, what's on your mind today?
Oh, so I salute you, Tom. You're a good host.
Thank you.
You talked about Franklin Delano Roosevelt's taxes at 90%.
Mm-hmm.
What you should have said was how much he paid in taxes to clarify to give people the idea of what he went through too. He wasn't a poor man.
No, he was very wealthy. I have no idea what he paid in taxes, though. Do
He knew
you?
what he paid in taxes. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was this big bill. The big bill is actually a big paycheck for the rich.
Oh, yeah.
And
$3.5 trillion.
So it's a paycheck for the 1% and a big bill for the rest of 99%, the rest of us.
Yeah, if you make under $35,000, Trump's big beautiful bill actually raises your taxes. And of course, if you make under $200,000 or $300,000, which means you spend most of the money you earn, his tariffs are raising your taxes as well.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That the other thing I like to say about voting in Florida and voting in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a felon in Ohio, you can vote.
Right.
But if you're a felon in Florida, you can't vote.
Interesting. I think felons should be allowed to vote if they're no longer in jail. Frankly, I think felons should be allowed to vote if they're in jail. They're still U.S. citizens just because they committed a crime.
They said on news once, if the felons got to vote in Florida, the Republicans would really be hurting.
Well, they passed the citizens of Florida passed a voter referendum saying that felons could vote. And so then the Republicans in the Florida legislature came in and said, yeah, but you can't vote if you owe any money to the government. And the government's not going to tell you if you owe it money. And so if you vote, then
you could go to prison for having voted when you owe the government money. I mean, it's just weird. So felons in Florida are afraid to vote is the bottom line.
Jim Crow type of thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is Jim Crow. I mean, the whole felons not voting thing is pretty much limited to the South, and it goes back to the days when they would arrest black people on minor crimes, call them felonies, get it on the books, and this was post Reconstruction, and then use that as a way of preventing them from voting. So yeah, I'm with you, Calvin. Thank you very much. Well said. Gary in Seattle. Hey, Gary, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hey, Tom. Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I heard from a guy that is real reliable. He's been reliable on a lot of other things. That the Department of Energy is going to require, I think it's 5 or 6 or 7 states where they have coal peaker plants. You know what I'm talking about with peaker plants?
I don't.
Well, peaker plants is when there's a surge in demand for power.
They're kind of like backup for the system plants?
Exactly. Okay. And these are coal, right? Right? Now, they were scheduled to be dismantled.
Right.
Because...
Yeah, weren't there like 17 of them that were going to be decommissioned?
It's a big amount. Yeah. I wasn't sure. This is the first I ever heard of it. Obviously, I thought
and Trump reversed that.
It was 7 states. It was 7 states, I believe.
Yeah.
And, really? And you're cutting off we're going 180 degrees backwards on technology.
And what's really nuts, Gary, is that the states that have the highest level of production of renewable power are red states. Right? South Dakota, 97% of their power coming from renewable sources.
Right.
Texas has more wind than every other state in America combined. Nebraska, huge wind and solar state. I mean, wind and solar are just big deals in these Midwestern and Southern red states because they're perfect for it. Right?
I have a friend who is part of a family that has wind turbines in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
He gets a check every month.
There you go.
And there's more than one, like 10 people or whatever it is in the family that gets involved in this.
There you go.
I don't know.
No, it's a huge economic opportunity, and Trump is trying to kill it. Because he gave that speech when he was running for office. He gave a speech to a bunch of fossil fuel executives. He said, "You guys make me president. You throw enough money in that I become president, and I will do whatever you want." And he's now doing it. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, the oil executive criminals, they're criminals. They own Congress and they own the president, and they bought the Supreme Court, I'm sure, too.
Oh, yeah.
On the way up.
Well, and one member of the Supreme Court, his mother was the former Ann Gorsuch.
Right.
Was the former EPA administrator under Trump, under Reagan, and she had to resign. Under a cloud, basically a bribery cloud, if I remember correctly. And I think that I think her son is carrying on her tradition of being the toady for the fossil fuel industry. And then what's her name? Amy Coney Barrett. Her father, for decades, was a lawyer for, I think it was Shell, one of the big oil companies, anyway.
Yeah. Well, they've got to get some rationale for their behavior because obviously. That's the only thing,
Oh, I think at least half of them are on the take.
What? Oh, yeah.
It's so obvious that Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito are on the take, and John Roberts' wife making over $10 million from fancy law firms. I mean, this is just so pathetic. We have the most corrupt Supreme Court, in my opinion, in history, and there's been some bad ones. I mean, the court of 1886, you had. Stephen J. Field on that court just openly taking bribes from the railroad companies to bring all those California tax cases that led to the Southern Pacific Railroad versus Santa Clara County decision, which didn't go the way they said, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, Gary, I got to move along. Thanks for the call. Terry in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Hey, Terry, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Hey, I've got a question for you, but I thought I would just mention something related back to your talking about Trump's hands. I happened to read, I believe it was on Blue Sky a couple of nights ago, people were making comments about Trump's swollen legs, and a doctor responded, said he'd been in the business for 30 years, and that there could be multiple causes for the swelling in the legs.
Correct.
What he focused on was what he called periorbital swelling around the eyes. And he said when you put those two things together, in his experience, that has always been kidney problems, and his guess would be if he saw a patient like that, he'd say they had 6 to 9 functional months left. Now, he said that caveating that, again, obviously I haven't examined Trump, but I thought that would just throw that in. But that relates to my question, really, which is, who's in charge and who will be in charge when Trump's gone? Because we know Trump has mental limitations. He had them in the first term. And the idea that he is keeping a tally and managing all aspects of Project 2025 and all of these really thousands of different actions that are going on.
Yeah, he's not doing that. Russell Vought is doing it, but he's signing the paperwork.
Yeah, exactly.
So number one, the person who will be in charge if Trump passes away is J.D. Vance. I mean, he's the vice president.
Vance is on vacation a week a month.
Yeah, I know. And J.D. Vance is basically dancing to the tune of the PayPal mafia, the tech billionaires out of California.
Thiel and Yarvin and crew. But on a day-to-day basis, though, you got a cabinet of wild cards who occasionally Trump has reversed. Pam Bondi got an embarrassment over the Epstein papers. Again, Vance is on vacation. I'm not really sure, in my mind, it's not clear who's sort of really orchestrating who conducting the orchestra right now. And then if you look at the groups that make up the extreme right, you've got the Koch oil lobby group. You've got the Thiel Yarvin Tech Bros group, which probably are the wild card among this
Curtis
group.
Yarvin, yeah.
And then you've got the Christian nationalists, and you've got the white supremacists. And I suppose you could put together an agenda that would agree with all of those. But it just leaves, it seems like there's a ball bouncing around here that people aren't focused on is exactly what happens the day after Trump isn't there.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, Terry, and the interesting thing is that I can't think of a single strongman dictator whose reign outlasted him without massive institutional support. I mean, you could look at Stalin and say, yes, the USSR continued. But typically when strongmen fall, so do their countries. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Terry, thank you for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
45 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind today?
Hey, not too much. Look, I want to address this thing about fascism skepticism that I keep hearing. As a matter of fact, I heard it from a couple of callers I really enjoy. Kenyatta compared it to, possible gang activity. I heard another guy, he was commenting about, just even the last caller, what's really going on behind the scenes, who's really pulling the strings. And, look, I've been playing MAGA for 2 weeks now. A lot of my coworkers are MAGA, and I saw an opportunity because there are some complaints among MAGA right now, the economy. They know, Tom. They know that that Trump has messed up this. And look, fascism is a mutation that started under George Bush. What it actually manifests in is really up for grabs. Now, Dave is of the opinion it's going to be nationalist socialism because I don't think there's any other option.
Well, that's what he's doing by acquiring these companies. I mean, that's classical national socialism.
Yes, and right now Trump is in his Paul von Hindenburg moment, right? Adolf Hitler was not taken seriously until he was vice chancellor. And then they were like, okay, this, and actually Franz von Papen famously, Papen was there the whole time. And Franz von Papen had an extensive resume. I mean, he should not have had anything to do with a lowlife like Adolf Hitler. Yeah. But even Papen famously said, look, I'm not worried about Hitler, we can control him.
Yeah, they thought they could ride the tiger.
Yeah, and my point is it's probably going to be the Christian ethno-nationalists that are, the last caller's question, that are going to come out ahead. But check this out, Tom. Trump is saying, just like Hindenburg, look, you can trust me. I've got experience. I'm a man of peace. He keeps reiterating that he's making peace. Mm-hmm. Trump caused all this. Trump triggered Beijing. He triggered the Kremlin. How did he trigger him? He showed total disregard for U.S. law. So the authorities in Beijing and in the Kremlin in Moscow said, look, we're going to start playing the great game. We are not going to be lectured to by a lawless country. They see America as lawless. And this is why Trump is trying to project power down in Venezuela. All this weird stuff is going on because really the Kremlin now is guiding the game. It is the great game they've always played.
I think you're underestimating the impact of the Epstein files. If it's true that Trump is not just in there, but is in there having sex with underage girls, and it's hard to come up with what else would justify the level of cover-up that we're watching right now. If that's the case, then the day that those things are finally forced into the open, either through a leak or through something, congressional committee or whatever, that's probably the day he'll start shelling Caracas.
Well, Tom, let me just say, all right, 'cause I can't recount the whole thing, but I've been immersed in MAGA for 2 weeks. Look, they are still guano crazy. Okay, they are crazy. They believe Barack Obama is a homosexual, that Michelle Obama is a transgender male, that he was covering up for Clinton. Look, we're in a mutation stage right now. Any random thing can happen. What scares Dave is Bill Clinton gets in front of the cameras and takes any responsibility, even though he thinks he's doing the right thing. MAGA will completely forget about Epstein. Yeah. And they'll move on with socialism, national socialism.
Yeah, I can't dispute that. Dave, thanks for the call. 10 minutes before the hour. Back with you in 60 seconds. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So back when Donald Trump debated Kamala Harris, he was asked about world leaders and whatnot, and he went off on this thing praising a guy named Viktor Orban and saying he's a tough guy, he's smart, he's the prime minister of Hungary, and he loves me, basically. So who is Viktor Orban? Well, it turns out Viktor Orban is a guy who took over Hungary in a regular election, the prime minister, and then turned it into basically a neo-fascist paradise for right-wingers. All the media is now controlled by right-wing oligarchs. He's packed the courts. He's changed the constitution so that they have things like gerrymandering and voter suppression, so he always wins every election. He throws people in jail for criticizing him, even on Facebook. I mean, this is what Hungary has become. Fox News loves it. Tucker Carlson did his show from there for a week, and that's what Donald Trump wants to do to America. You can read the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Trump's New Hero, the strong man who crushed democracy in Hungary. Check it out.
This is a test of the emergency fascism system.
Welcome back. 9 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Tim in New Berlin, Wisconsin. Hey, Tim, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I asked you the last time, get medical help. You and your listeners are, the last one especially, is very, very crazy. I mean, you call Trump fascist, but you're the fascist.
Well, we appreciate your compassion, Tim. Do you have a specific topic you want to talk about?
Sure. Like, let's talk about gerrymandering. The gerrymandering in California, Illinois, Michigan,
Maryland.
New York. You'd have more credibility if you talked about that than just Texas. Everything you guys project onto Trump, everything you project
I did a whole
Trump,
rant this morning about how Wes Moore is going to gerrymander Maryland. I congratulated him on it.
Yeah, I know you do, because it's like rules for thee, but not for me. And that's how Democrats
rules for thee are the rules for me.
Yeah, or whatever. Your Trump derangement syndrome, the guy before that just talked, has serious Trump derangement syndrome, and he needs to seek medical help. But how to air America?
What would that medical help look like, Tim?
mental, padded room, helping you.
So you want to lock up people
Trump,
who think that Donald Trump is a pedophile?
Let's just say if they had anything in the Epstein files, they would have leaked it out years ago.
So you want to
There's
lock up
nothing
people
there.
who think that Donald Trump is a rapist and a criminal?
He's not, though.
Well, the jury of his peers found him guilty of it.
You're spreading unsubstantiated rumors, and that's...
I'm talking about an actual court case where 12 jurors sat and listened to the evidence and said, yeah, he raped her.
12? No, he did not. She couldn't even remember the time and date when it alleged happened.
She certainly remembered the event.
No, she didn't. She was a Trump hater that came out. And you had 12.
So Trump is just pure as the driven snow. He's not, even though he bragged about grabbing women by the crotch, he's never done it. Is that what you're trying to say, Tim?
That's not criminal to say that or do that.
It is criminal. It's called sexual assault.
No, it's not. No,
Tim,
it's not.
Tim, I'll tell you what. You walk up to a woman. You live in New Berlin, Wisconsin. You walk up to some random woman on the street in New Berlin, grab her in the crotch. And I'll give you $50 if you don't get busted, beat up, or that she doesn't call the police on you. You're telling me that it's perfectly legal, right? You're telling me that what Trump bragged about doing is legal? Try it.
You're crazy.
If you think it's legal.
You're absolutely crazy. I mean, you have a responsibility as a talk show host to give honest opinions, and you're so far down the rabbit hole that it's just ridiculous. Grow up, get a job, become a Republican. My God.
Become a Republican?
It's okay to have money. I'm not rich at all, by the way. I'm not rich at all.
No, you're one of the suckers. The billionaires are laughing all the way to the bank at you, Tim.
No, I take personal responsibility for my actions. I don't expect the government to give me things. And liberals don't even give a damn about poor people or black people or brown people. They only want their votes.
So you don't want to take Social Security, huh?
At them and get their votes.
How do you get your health insurance, Tim?
Through my work.
Okay, good. So when you retire, do you intend to take Social Security and Medicare, or are you just going to pass on them because they're socialist?
No, I earned it. I put money in.
Oh, but wait a minute. I thought you stood up on your own 2 feet.
You're conflating two different things.
You didn't put money into Medicare.
You're conflating two different things.
I'm saying that we live in a socialist nation, and you're trying to claim your independence, and I'm telling you, your independence is a function of government providing for you to a large extent.
No, the government is not there to cradle-grave society where everybody's supposed to just have the government take care of them.
Nobody's suggesting that, Tim, but the business that employs you could not do it if the government did not maintain stable currency. The insurance that you're provided by your employer would not be reasonable insurance if you didn't have a state insurance commissioner to keep them honest.
I have a degree in history and a degree in economics.
That's great. So you went to colleges that were supported by the government.
Yeah, but I wasn't indoctrinated by liberal. I take that back. I had a history professor that was a commie Castro guy, and he told us off, and we got kicked out.
So Tim,
and I got my money back.
Yeah. Tim, we're going to hit a break here in just a second. I am enjoying the conversation.
You can't discuss anything. You go on and spew stupid things about kids with blood. Trump. I mean, come on.
Do you think that Trump is getting transfusions of children's blood?
No, he's not.
So what's causing the bruises on the back of his hand?
Old people have bruises on the back of their hands. I'm 60 years old, and I have bruises that pop up. That doesn't mean I had from you're spreading unsubstantiated.
Maybe you should try it.
Crazy.
Okay, Tim.
Talk to
Tim, thanks for the call, and thanks for listening on Civic Media. I appreciate it. We're hitting the top of the hour here. We'll be back on the other side. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, We also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Cokeland, The Secret History of Coke Industries and Corporate Power in America by Christopher Leonard. This is from the preface. On May 18th, 1981, 4 Wall Street bankers traveled to Wichita, Kansas. They went there to make an offer to Charles Koch, the CEO of an obscure mid-size energy company. The bankers from Morgan Stanley wanted to convince Koch to take his family's company public, offering shares for sale on the New York Stock Exchange. Their deal was squarely in line with the conventional wisdom of corporate America at the time. Going public was seen as a natural progression for companies like Koch Industries, offering them access to big pools of money and promising enormous paydays for the existing team of executives. All it required from the CEO was to surrender control. Morgan Stanley, in return, would collect a small fortune in fees. Charles Koch was 45 years old. He had run Koch Industries since he was 32 when his father died suddenly. He was trim, tall, and had an athlete's build. He spoke quietly in meetings and seemed almost passive. The bankers laid out their plan to take Koch public. They revealed what, to most executives at least, might have been the most significant detail. If Charles Koch agreed to the deal, he could earn $20 million overnight. The bankers seemed incredulous when they prepared a confidential memo about Koch's reaction. He does not want this cash, the memo reported. Charles Koch calmly explained to them why their offer made no sense. His company was breathtakingly profitable. It operated in vital, deeply complex corners of the American energy industry. During the 1980s, Koch Industries was the largest purchaser and transporter of U.S. crude oil. It owned an oil refinery. It employed teams of commodity traders who bought and sold a wildly diverse menu of raw materials and financial products, from gasoline to paper futures contracts. This might have encouraged most CEOs to take their company public. Koch Industries, however, did not want outsiders to know how much money its traders were earning. Taking the company public would expose too many of its secrets. The memo said, certain of Koch's commodity traders are particularly worried that their high salaries, once disclosed to the public, would be used against them by their trading partners. Secrecy was a strategic necessity for Koch Industries. Charles Koch did not want to surrender it. He also didn't want to surrender control. He had a specific, clear vision of how to run his company, and he didn't need Wall Street investors to interfere. If the bankers expected Charles Koch to go along with the conventional wisdom of their time, then they, like so many outsiders, did not understand him. Beneath his low-key veneer, Charles Koch was, at his core, a fighter. He had unmovable ideas about how things should be, and he did not back down when challenged. When he was challenged by his own brothers for control of Koch Industries, he fought them in a bitter legal battle that lasted decades. When he was challenged by members of a powerful labor union during his first years as CEO, he fought them even as they committed an act of industrial sabotage that nearly destroyed Koch's oil refinery. When the FBI and the U.S. Department of Justice launched a criminal investigation into Koch Industries' oil gathering business, Charles Koch fought them with every legal and political tool at his disposal. When a liberal Congress and President Barack Obama sought to impose regulations on the fossil fuel industry to control greenhouse gas emissions, Charles Koch fought them in ways that changed U.S. politics. In each of these fights, Charles Koch prevailed. When Charles Koch dismissed the bankers in 1981, it was just a small skirmish in the larger war to control Koch Industries. After prevailing in that fight, he created a company that was true to his vision. He avoided the snares that entangled many publicly traded companies that report their financial results to investors every 3 months. Koch Industries didn't have to think quarter to quarter. The company thinks year to year. An internal think tank and deal-making committee called the Development Group will sometimes think through a business deal on a timeline measured in decades. This long-term view made Koch more nimble where other companies stumbled. In 2003, for example, Koch Industries bought a group of money-losing fertilizer plants when no publicly traded company was willing to take the risk. Today, those plants are as profitable as a broken ATM machine that spews out cash around the clock. Unlike publicly traded companies, Koch Industries does not pay out rich dividends to investors. Charles Koch insists on reinvesting at least 90% of the company's profits, fueling its constant expansion. This strategy laid the foundation for decades of continuous growth. Koch Industries expanded continuously by purchasing other companies and branching out into new industries. It specialized in the kind of businesses that are indispensable to modern civilization, but which most consumers never directly encounter. The company is embedded in the hidden infrastructure of everyday life. Millions of people use Koch's products without ever seeing Koch's name attached. Koch refines and distributes fossil fuels, from gasoline to jet fuel, on which the global economy is dependent. Koch is the world's third largest producer of nitrogen fertilizer, which is the cornerstone of our modern food system. Koch makes the synthetic materials used in baby diapers, waistbands, and carpets. It makes the chemicals used for plastic bottles and pipes. It owns Georgia Pacific, which makes the wall panels, beams, and plywood required to build homes and office buildings. It makes napkins, paper towels, stationery, newspaper, and personal hygiene products. Koch Industries owns a network of commodities trading offices in Houston, Moscow, Geneva, and elsewhere, which are the circulatory system of modern finance. The book, Kochland, by Christopher Leonard.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's the third hour of our program. Dean Baker's writing over on commondreams.org. If Democrats want to beat Trump, they should embrace Medicare for all. You know, I've always thought that this was a winning topic. I realized, you know, when Obama was pitching Obamacare, you know, the Affordable Care Act, back in, what was that, 2009, something like that, I think it was, that the Republicans just crawled all over this. The Koch brothers and their AstroTurf. It wasn't just them. I mean, other right-wing billionaires as well. And the whole AstroTurf, you know, Tea Party thing, and keep your government hands off my Medicare, and all this kind of weird stuff. Yeah, I remember all that, and I'm familiar with it, and I'm sure that it will be repeated. You know, for example, the gerrymandering effort in California is already drawing millions of dollars from right-wingers who don't want California to lose, you know, a couple of Republican seats. You know, I get it that, you know, five on the take corrupt Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court have turned our country into an oligarchy with the Buckley, Balaam, United, and McCutcheon decisions. I totally understand all that. And I know that it would be a huge lift. And I also, you know, acknowledge that we have no power federally right now. The House, the Senate, and the White House are all in the hands of the Republicans. But assuming that power comes back around again. And you know, there have been dark times. I mean, from the Republican Party's point of view, the era from 1932 until 1997 was a dark time. During that entire period of time, the Republicans only controlled the House of Representatives for 2 years, 46-47 or 47-48, whatever the, you know, I guess it was the election of 46, so that 47 and 48. And that was when they passed the law, I believe it was called Taft-Hartley, that allowed states to basically screw unions, you know, the right to work for less stuff. But basically, most of that time, Republicans were out of power for, you know, most of, for example, my dad's lifetime. And, you know, finally they clawed back into power starting in 71 with Lewis Powell's memo, and then, you know, 3 months later being put on the Supreme Court by Richard Nixon, and you know, they were off to the races. The billionaires got into the game and decided to turn America into an oligarchy, and here we are. So I realize how tough this would be. I realize how difficult it would be. I realize what a big lift it would be, what a challenge it would be to even talk about Medicare for all. But I continue to believe that Americans are sick and tired of this. We are the only developed country in the world where health care is a privilege and not a right. I mean, just let that sink in. Shouldn't health care be a right of citizenship? Shouldn't it be that if you are a citizen of the United States, just if you live here, you have health care? I mean, there's the compassion argument, you know, it's the right thing to do. There's the legal argument, health care should be part of the commons. The commons is, you know, that's stuff that the government really runs, not to make a profit. You know, this whole idea that you want to run government like a business is stupid, you know, right on its face. But that there are certain sectors of the economy that really should be run by the government. You don't want, you know, Jeff Bezos's company running your police force. You don't want him running your fire department. You don't want him running your public schools, and you shouldn't want him running, or anybody else, running your healthcare system. Healthcare should be, and universities, in my opinion, should all be part of the commons. In fact, Abraham Lincoln tried to make the universities part of the commons. He created 74 land-grant colleges, including Michigan State University, the school that my mother graduated from. And, you know, it's... So anyhow, here's this argument that Dean Baker is making that if Democrats want to beat Trump, they should embrace Medicare for all. I think increasingly Americans are pissed off, upset, and by the way, this is the end of August, so we've got September, October, November, December. We have about 4 months and a couple of weeks. There's going to be a massive increase in the price of ACA policies, of Obamacare policies, which are covering tens of millions of Americans right now. And that's because in 2001, there was legislation passed that expires at the end of this year. There was legislation passed because of the pandemic that opened up Obamacare to more people and reduced the cost of it. There were, you know, federal subsidies. Those are going away at the end of December of this year. So starting next year, you know, the average family could see as much as a $600 a month increase in their health insurance. And, you know, some businesses, there are business exchanges for Obamacare as well. Some businesses will see radical increases. Now, you know, we provide health care to all of our full-time employees, and we've been watching for years. I mean, the 23 years I've been doing this show, it seems like every year our health insurance costs go up. They're massive. I mean, we're spending a small fortune on it. And I think Americans are sick of this. We spend, you know, we spend between, it depends on whose numbers you're looking at, but between $9,000 and $12,000 a year on health care and health insurance per American citizen. Canadians spend around $5,000 a year. Germans around $5,000. Most of Europe is around $6,000. We're spending twice as much, or in some cases more than twice as much. And we don't have the long lifespan that they have. We don't have the high quality of life that they have. We do have more communicable disease than they have because we don't have a healthcare system, so people don't go to the doctor. They just can't afford it And so they just push through with their illnesses while they're walking around in public or going to work and bringing you your food while they're coughing on it. I mean, a national healthcare system beyond just the commons, you know, the democracy aspect of it, or the compassion, the moral aspect of it. There's a public health aspect to it too. You want to have a system that can stop communicable diseases. You know, a country in the world had one of the best records with regard to COVID. It was Taiwan. Why? Because Taiwan has the best healthcare system in the world. It's very inexpensive. When you're born, you're given your healthcare number. It follows you throughout your life. Everything is pretty much free or very, very cheap. And in fact, it was set up by an American who went over to Taiwan. There's a whole thing about this in my book, The Hidden History of American Healthcare. There's a whole chapter about the Taiwanese healthcare system. And, you know, it was an American who went over and said, here's how you do it. And they did it, and it works. It works spectacularly, as do the healthcare systems of most European countries and Costa Rica. So I agree. I think that, raising the minimum wage to $18 an hour, I think that's important. I think, I think it's really important that we have free college education for anybody who can get it, who has grades good enough, who can intellectually deal with it, and free trade school education for anybody who wants to go into the skilled trades. These should be part of the commons as well. This is how we prepare. This is an investment in the future. This is an investment in the intellectual infrastructure of our country. It's an investment that we collectively make. Now, I realize Republicans hate this because they say, no, you should stand on your 2 feet, which is really code for if you're wealthy, if you're white, but particularly if you're wealthy, you don't need government. So screw all those people who do, right? Not my problem. That's the Republicans' worldview. Meanwhile, you ever heard of National Socialism? This is what Nazi stands for, N-A-Z-I, is the National Socialist Party of Germany. And National Socialism is the merger of corporate and state interests. Look it up in the dictionary, right? And Donald Trump is moving us in that direction. He's trying to turn us into a National Socialist state. He's just acquired 10% of Intel. He's getting a piece of NVIDIA, I believe it is, one of the chip makers. He's getting at least a piece of their revenue. He's actually getting stock in Intel. And he's bragging about this. He's using the money from the CHIPS Act, by the way, that was supposed to help subsidize the creation of chip factories in the United States. Instead of using that for what it was appropriated by Congress for, and we're talking $8.9 billion. This is not a small amount of money. It could have created multiple factories in the United States. Instead, Trump is using that to buy the shares, the stock in Intel. This is what National Socialist regimes do. Hitler owned a good chunk of Volkswagen. I mean, Hitler, in theory anyway, invented Volkswagen. The people's car. Volks, people, Wagen, wagon, car. So, and then on top of that, Trump is trying to create this sovereign wealth fund, he says, which he's ultimately going to fund with crypto, which will make him a fortune and all of his crypto buddies. It just looks to me like state-run economic systems. And when Barack Obama, you'll recall, when Barack Obama back in the day, back in 2009, General Motors, Chrysler, and Ford were all literally on the verge of bankruptcy. Nobody could buy a car because of the Bush crash, because we deregulated the banks in 1999 thanks to Phil Gramm and the Republicans, and Bill Clinton signed the legislation. We did away with Glass-Steagall. And so what happened? Well, over the next 12 years, the banks, or 10 years, the banks just started, ripping us all off, gambling with our money, taking billion-dollar bonuses and things. Now, when they did this during the Reagan administration, Reagan sent more than 1,000 bankers to jail, or he prosecuted more than 1,000. Several hundred went to jail in the savings and loan crash. Reagan did it right. I never thought I'd say that, but he did. But Bush and Obama, they let all of the banksters off loose. Not a single bankster went to jail. But when Obama said, because of these banks, we're going to take a share in the big three automakers to keep them from going into bankruptcy, the Republicans went nuts. They were like, oh my God, it's National Socialism, it's communism, it's Nazism, you can't do that. But now that Trump wants to do it, suddenly they're all good with it. What the hell is going on with the GOP? Do you have any insights into this? It seems to me like this has become a cult of personality where the cult leader, dear leader Donald, can do no wrong. Oh, he's charged with raping women? No, he would never do that. Are you kidding? Amazing. It's just amazing, isn't it? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. What say you?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Speaking the truth, J.D. Vance and his buddies would really rather you didn't know all about. I'll be right back. And welcome back. Joe in Villa Park, Illinois. Hey, Joe, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hey, good to talk to you. So I wanted to follow up from the caller from the last hour when you spoke about Trump getting the money from the billionaire, the oligarchs, if they could donate it to his campaign. I believe it was $1 billion requested, the same amount I think Jared got. But it's telling that that's one of the few promises he's ever kept in his life.
You mean the one to the fossil fuel industry?
To the fossil fuel industry, when he's, and everyone else to the cleaners, because he knows eventually that money's going to end up in his pocket.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
And you have the patience of a St. Tim. I mean, after 5 minutes of regurgitated OAN, I would have.
I kept waiting for an actual issue. The first 15 years of this program, when conservatives, real, big name conservatives, John Bolton types, would come on this program and debate me on issues. And I've had some really great debates over the years with some, conservatives that I actually respect. And, I keep hoping that some of my conservative callers will call in and say, okay, let's debate whether we should have a national health care system. Let's actually talk about it. Let's debate whether we should have free college for all. Let's debate whether we should have a 90% income tax bracket. Let's debate whether we should have, federal subsidies and support for libraries and things. Let's debate whether we should privatize our fire departments. I've had all those debates with conservatives over the years. But sadly, some of these guys, they just want to call in and call names. It's just reflects a paucity of argument, I guess. So, Joe, thanks for the call.
Sadly, they're lost.
Yeah, good talking to you, Joe. Thank you very much.
All right, stay here.
Yeah. John in Butte, Montana. Hey, John, thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's up?
Hey, Tom, you may have talked about this before. If you did, I missed it, but I'd like to know your opinion about why Donald Trump appears to be obsessed with lowering the Federal Reserve, lowering interest rates.
Because he thinks it'll goose the economy.
With the economy.
He thinks,
say again?
He thinks lower interest rates will stimulate the economy. And he's right, by the way. You lower interest rates, you stimulate the economy. The problem is if you stimulate the economy, you run the risk of increasing inflation.
But doesn't lowering interest rates allow large financial institutions to borrow money at near zero? Well, I can't do that.
Right. Yeah. Typically, unless you have just insanely good credit, you're still going to be paying, a relatively high percentage rate. Although it does lower mortgage rates, which has a huge impact on the American middle class.
Okay. Do you have an opinion about lowering interest rates?
I think that the Fed is doing it right now. As long as we still have inflation. Now, the wild card right now is that last month, the July jobs report was terrible. And so this morning I was listening to, I'm forgetting his name now, but one of the guys on NPR, one of the econ guys, and he was pointing out that, the Fed has two mandates. One is to keep inflation low. The other is to keep employment high or unemployment low. And that unemployment looks like it's starting to creep up now because the economy is softening. So the Fed may be lowering interest rates, even though that might cause more inflation, because we're still above the 2% inflation rate, which is their goal. So the Fed may still cut interest rates just because they're concerned about employment. I'm not real concerned about how they're doing it. I know some of my callers, particularly Larry from Los Angeles are, but I'm not. John, thanks for the call. Our daily song is now available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of other platforms. Just look for songs by Louise and Thom Hartmann. Check it out. When Ronald Reagan took over America in 1981, we handed him a brand gleaming new country. Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, Jack Kennedy, they had built America. We had brand new schools, brand new hospitals, brand new interstate highway systems, brand new airports, infrastructure. We were the envy of the world. And then Republicans came along and they said, well, you just cut the top tax rate from 74% down to 27% and everything will trickle down. Instead, what do we get? Billionaires and poverty. They said, hey, just deregulate guns, an armed society is a polite society. Instead, we've got more school shootings than anywhere in the world. They said, just kill off civics and history classes in our schools and liberate our young people to focus on science and math. Now we've got people who don't know how our government works. I mean, it just goes on from there. There's a whole rant about it over at HartmannReport.com titled, FDR Saved America, Then the GOP Ripped Us Apart. Check it out.
He said just day one, but we knew the score. Now he's sending troops to settle old score. From LA streets to the Capitol's dome, he's making this land feel less like home. He's a dictator with a MAGA crown.
It's so funny, the Tyrant on CNN just moments ago said, Donald Trump says I am not a dictator. Yeah. Alrighty. What's on your mind here? John in Niles, Michigan. Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, God bless you, Tom, and all your listeners. I saw Senator Bernie Sanders in Kalamazoo this past Saturday. He was helping Abdul El-Sayed, who is running for Senate in the state of Michigan, or for Michigan. Anyway, the Western Michigan University auditorium was packed, and Bernie received, as well as Abdul El-Sayed, received very loud standing ovations, particularly, of course, over Medicaid and also the famine that's going on in Gaza.
Yeah.
Very important. But anyway, the question I have for you, Tom, is I know Senator Sanders has said he will not run for president again, but do you think he would be open for running, being on the vice presidential ticket with, say, Governor Newsom or former Transportation Secretary Buttigieg?
I doubt it. He's 83 years old.
Yeah, but he's as sharp as a tack.
Oh, I know.
And he's as honest as the day is long.
I know.
And he's highly educated, and he's never taken a dime. And I think he's the real deal. I still do.
He is. He should have become president in 2016.
Yes, he was cheated out of that in California. He was definitely cheated with the provisional ballots that they all burned. But anyway, also, by the way, I think if Trump had nothing to hide, why would Attorney General Pam Bondi simply release all the Epstein files and exonerate Trump from all the pedophilia allegations?
Yeah, because clearly he has something to hide. I mean, we're watching one of the biggest cover-ups in presidential history right now. This makes Watergate look like a joke.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good talking to you, John. Thanks for the call. 27 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls on the other side of the break. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, taking back the mainstream media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here with you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where smart people get their news. Stick around. The Thom Hartmann Book Club is Defying Hitler by Sebastian Haffner, a memoir. This is from chapter 17, about a little more than a third of the way into the book. At first, the revolution only gave the impression of being an historical event like any other, a matter for the press that might just possibly have some effect on the public mood. The Nazis celebrate January 30th as their day of revolution. They are wrong. There was no revolution on January 30th, 1933, just a change of government. Hitler became chancellor, by no means the Führer of the Nazi regime. The cabinet contained only 2 Nazis apart from him. He swore an oath of allegiance to the Weimar Constitution. The general opinion was that it was not the Nazis who had won, but the bourgeois parties of the right, who had captured, in quotes, the Nazis and held all the key positions in the government. In constitutional terms, events had taken a much more conventional, unrevolutionary course than most of what had happened during the previous 6 months. Outwardly also, the day had no revolutionary aspects, unless one considers a Nazi torchlight procession through Wilhelmstrasse or a minor gunfight in the suburbs that night as signs of a revolution. For most of us outsiders, the experience of January 30th, 1933 was that of reading the papers and the emotions we felt while we were doing so. The morning headline was, "Hitler called to president." That produced a certain nervous, impotent irritation. Hitler had been called to the president in August and November. He had been offered the vice chancellorship and then the chancellorship. Both times he had set impossible conditions, and both times there had been solemn declarations, never again. Each time, never again had lasted exactly 3 months. Hitler's opponents in Germany at that time suffered from a compulsive urge to offer him everything he wanted, indefatigably, and at an even cheaper price, indeed to press it upon him. It's the same now with his opponents outside Germany. Again and again, this appeasement was formally renounced, and again it gaily reappeared at the crucial moment. Just so today. Then, as now, one's only hope was Hitler's own unreasonableness. Would it not sooner or later exhaust the patience of his opponents? Then, as now, it became apparent that their patience knew no bounds. At midday, the headline said, "Hitler makes impossible demands." We nodded, half reassured. It was only too credible. It would have gone against his nature to ask for less than too much. Perhaps the cup had once more passed from us. Hitler, the last defense against Hitler. At about 5 o'clock, the evening papers arrived. Cabinet of National Unity informed Hitler Reichschancellor. I don't know what the general reaction was. For about a minute, mine was completely correct. Icy horror. Certainly this had been a possibility for a long time. You had to reckon with it. Nevertheless, it was so bizarre, so incredible to read it now in black and white. Hitler, Reichschancellor. For a moment, I physically sensed the man's odor of blood and filth, the nauseating approach of a man-eating animal, its foul, sharp claws in my face. Then I shook the sensation off, tried to smile, started to consider, and found many reasons for reassurance. That evening, I discussed the prospects of the new government with my father. We agreed it had a good chance of doing a lot of damage, but not much chance of surviving very long. A deeply reactionary government with Hitler as its mouthpiece. Apart from this, it did not really differ much from the 2 governments that had succeeded Bruning's. Even with the Nazis, it would not have a majority in the Reichstag. Of course, that could always be dissolved, but the government had a clear majority of the population against it, in particular the working class, which would probably go communist now that the Social Democrats had completely discredited themselves. One could prohibit the communists, but that would only make them more dangerous. In the meantime, the government would be likely to implement reactionary social and cultural measures with some anti-Semitic additions to please Hitler. That would not attract any of its opponents to its side. Foreign policy would probably be a matter of banging the table. There might be an attempt to rearm. That would automatically add the outside world to the 60% of the home population who were against the Hitler government. Besides, who were the people who had suddenly started voting Nazi in the last 3 years? Misguided ignoramuses for the most part, victims of propaganda, a fluctuating mass that would fall apart at the first disappointment. No, all things considered, this government was not a cause for alarm. The only question was what would come after it. It was possible that they would drive the country to civil war. The communists were capable of going on the attack before a prohibition against them came into force. The next day, this turned out to be the general opinion of the intelligent press. It is curious how plausible an argument it is, even today, when we know what came next. How could things turn out so completely different? Perhaps it was just because we were all so certain that they could not do so, and relied on that with far too much confidence. So we neglected to consider that it might, if worse came to worse, be necessary to prevent the disaster from happening. Through the whole of February 1933, everything that happened remained a matter for the press. In other words, it took place in an arena that would lose all reality for 99% of the population the moment there were no newspapers. Admittedly.
Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag you're it. Well, it's the brand new Confederate States of America, plantation politics. You know, the old Confederate States, today known as MAGA America, the new Confederate States, were devoted to making America as white as possible, stripping women and minorities of political and economic power, gutting workers' rights, rigging election outcomes, their leaders nakedly taking bribes, using the phony veneer of Christianity to justify brutal policies, including slavery, making queer people invisible, reconfiguring schools for indoctrination, having their militias terrorize minorities and their opponents, and maintaining a government of, by, and for rich white men. And these are the principles, the core principles around which the modern day GOP has reorganized itself. You can find an entire article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled "The Plantation Politics of MAGA America. Is this the future we want?" Check it out.
Well, I woke up this morning, turned on my screen, saw Trump and Musk in a Twitter war scene. One said, "I bought the Senate." The other said, "So, I bought the man who runs your favorite show." They're punching and posting and flexing their might, while the rest of us wonder who shut off the light. Democracy's wheezing in a billionaire fog as Justice Roberts walks his billionaire dog. Who owns America? Is it Bezos, Musk, or Vlad? Who bought the Constitution with a platinum Amex pad? It ain't we the people that ships in distress. It's a yacht club cage match in a democracy mess. Oh, say, can you see? We've been repossessed.
36 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Peter in Seattle. Hey, Peter, what's up?
Hi there. Okay, I think maybe we're falling into a kind of a weird trap about making America great again. I mean, I think many of us know, well, he wants to make America white again.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and he's finally said, okay, at what point in time does he want to go back to? About 1900, the Gilded Age, right? And I mean,
or 1860. Restore slavery. He was complaining the other day that slavery wasn't so bad.
Yeah, and definitely Jim Crow wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Well, okay, now just think about this for a moment. What if Barack Obama said, we need to make America great again? Like, think about that one. Like, what kind of heart attack?
Well, I'd want to know the context. I mean, we know when Trump says make America great again, he means restore basically white men to positions of prominence right across the board. Look at what he's done with our military, firing women and black people. Look at what he's done with the judiciary. Look at what he's done with the federal workforce. I mean, you know, it's very clear what Trump means by that. If Obama said it, I'd want another context.
Well, they would say that he's saying America isn't great now, which is kind of what Trump is saying.
Well, yeah,
and
I suppose.
I did see that, somebody asked, well, a black Republican, okay, when was America great for black people? And he said, well, right now. Right, and Trump wants to make America, you know, what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can say, like, well, how about America is pretty great right now. I mean, it's better for black people now than it ever has been in the U.S.
Probably. Right? I'm guessing there are some black people who would argue with that. Maybe a year ago, it was better than it's ever been. But, you know, the black colleges and universities are under attack. Affirmative action is under attack. DEI is under attack. So, we're sliding backwards, Peter. I think you have to acknowledge that.
Well, but, we can say, like, America...
What's the point you're trying to make here? What's the point of your call?
Well, let's not say that America isn't great or hasn't been great, okay? Because, that is actually Obama did say, Barack Obama said America is pretty great now. And that's,
And we are. I mean, we have the largest economy in the world. We have, although China's creeping up on us, we have for 250 years had more or less a democracy, and every iteration of it has gotten better and better in these 80-year cycles. It seems we've done some backsliding. I'll admit we've done some horrible things around the world. On the other hand, we've done some really good things. Trump is undoing those. You know, PEPFAR saved 5 million lives in Africa, for example. You know, so Trump and Musk had to undo that. But yeah, no, I get it. Peter, thanks for the call. Brian in Baltimore. Hey, Brian, what's up?
Hey, Tom, heard you over the weekend on MSNBC. Enjoyed listening to you, and I hope you keep it up.
Well, thank you.
I think we need to keep spreading how critical things are.
Yeah.
But one of the things I'm concerned about is with Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's an icon right now, and he's trying to pass the torch to AOC, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is it's flickering out a bit. One of my thoughts, I really think from the Daily Show, Jon Stewart has some potential from a candidate standpoint in regards to combating the popularity issue with Trump.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Trump was a reality show star. I mean, Jon Stewart didn't do reality TV. He's a comedian, but Ronald Reagan was a movie star. I mean, we have a long history, or some history anyway, of making high-profile people, stars basically, into political icons. So, I think Jon Stewart, depending on what he wanted to run for and where he wanted to run for it, he probably would have a pretty good chance.
Yeah, but Bernie Sanders, his age, who's taking over? I mean, I really worry because what he's fighting for is probably some of the most important issues, which you've spoken of earlier in the show.
Yeah.
And one of the things I see in my life, I worked public industry, and now I work government. I've seen both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize the faults in both, but I also recognize the greed that is allowed to really propel itself in the private industry, and that's what concerns me, is that we're just we're seeing Trump in all these interviews, but we're not talking about the gold he's embellishing everything in the background with, and like this absolute kind of significance of grandeur that really isn't American. America's about middle class people.
Should be.
And we're losing sight of that totally.
This was the great accomplishment of the Reagan administration and the Reagan Revolution, Brian, is that prior to the 1980s, everybody understood that the American dream was my dad's life, right? You get a good union job, you can raise your family, you can buy a house, you get a new car every 2-3 years, you can take a vacation every year, and you have enough money left over to retire and have a decent pension. That was the American dream. Reagan came along and said, that's not the American dream. That's normal. The American dream is to become rich. And, we got this whole greed is good thing, and it's been going on for 44 years now. And, the Republicans and the billionaires that own them have succeeded to a large extent in recalibrating the American dream. And the only way that most Americans will ever achieve that is through the lottery, which is one of the reasons why lotteries have proliferated all across the country.
So has it evolved now into this oligarch dictatorship kind of fascism that we see?
I think so, yeah.
Is it because of that?
Yeah, and they're exploiting that. I mean, when Reagan came into office, 2/3 of us we're in the middle class. 2/3 of us had the equivalent of a good union job or a good union job. About 1/3 of America had union jobs. Another third had the equivalent of a good union job because the union jobs set the local wage and benefit floor. Today, it's not 2/3, it's 45 to 47% of Americans. So, about 20% of us, more or less, about 1/5 of us have fallen out of the middle class. And those people know it, and they're pissed, and they're struggling. And so the Republicans come along and they say, you've fallen out of the middle class because of the Democrats, because they took your good job and they either sent it to China or they gave it to a black person or a Hispanic person. And therefore, you need to be pissed off at those Chinese, and you need to be pissed off at those black people, and you need to be pissed off at those Hispanic people, and we will lead your outrage. And it's a complete redirect. The fact of the matter is that the reason why the middle class in America has gone from 66% down to 47% largely has been the destruction of unions. When Reagan came into office, it was 1/3 of America had union jobs. By the way, most of Europe is 70, 80% unionized. When Reagan came in, it was 1/3. By the time his administration, the George Bush, the 12 years of 8 years of Reagan and 4 years of George Herbert Walker Bush were done, we were down to 10%. We're down to 6% now. And Trump comes along and he says, my tariffs are going to bring manufacturing back to America. Well, yeah, probably, ultimately. I mean, not the way he's doing them, but tariffs properly done. And I've been making this argument for a long, long time. Tariffs properly done will bring manufacturing back to the United States. And that's a good and important thing, particularly for strategic items. I mean, we can't make a cruise missile right now without parts from China, which is insane, right? Our entire telecommunications infrastructure is running on Huawei parts that feed our information back to China. They're listening to our phone conversations. Zoom is based in China, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is that even if all those factories came back today, if they came back to right-to-work states where you're only being paid $8 an hour to work in a factory, you're not going to have a middle class either. The middle class was not created by manufacturing jobs.
CEOs are making...
Oh, they're making,
so much
600 times. The middle class was not created by manufacturing jobs. The middle class was created by unions in manufacturing jobs. And it could just as easily be unions in service jobs. And to a large extent it is, with teachers and nurses and things, and doctors. The AMA is a union. But, what we need to bring back to America isn't just factories. We need to bring back to America unions. And that's the one thing that Republicans will never allow to happen. And that's why we need Democrats.
They need to realize they're piggybacking the union benefits. Everybody is.
There you go. Brian, thank you. Well said. Appreciate the call there from Baltimore. 46 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
As we speak, Kilmar Garcia is in a courtroom which is going to decide whether he gets sent off to Uganda or not. I'll keep that prediction. And welcome back. MJ in Seattle. Hey, MJ, what's on your mind today?
Well, good morning. About Kilmar, Trump is trying to got his finger on the scale there. He's calling that man a monster.
I know. So is Christy Noem.
It's just
and
that.
Pam Bondi.
I'm so angry about that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why I called today. My grandmother was the first woman in my whole family line who voted. That was in the early 1920s. So that's not a very long time, right? We've experienced.
It's probably true for
females
me
have
too.
experienced-
Yeah, good point, MJ.
Yeah. We've experienced a lot of being held down, being made. Our work has been unpaid forever.
Our work meaning women's
payment
work, yes.
that our payment was that our families would do well, our children would thrive and see a better life than we had had. We would see that they were healthy as far as we could. We would give our lives for it.
Yeah, my mother certainly did for me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm noticing that things are getting worse for us, and I think it's because the Republicans, in their new thought process with their new leader, now I'm starting to feel triggered again. Pregnancy and delivering children safely into a world where they can be educated and cared for has been primary for us. We haven't given that up, and yet now most of us are going to work too.
Yeah.
And
which again is the result of Reaganomics.
Yeah, and this whole Epstein thing, the Epstein thing has taken that and just shoved it back in our faces. You can be attacked. You can be abused. We can harvest your girl children and take them into lives of depression, mental illness. Poor Virginia.
Yeah, and when was the last time you heard Pam Bondi talk about a victim?
Right.
Or quote a victim, or interview a victim, or cite a victim? Never. She's only interested in protecting Donald Trump.
That's right. That is her. He set her up with.
I mean, she was the Attorney General, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the state of Florida throughout most of those years when Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, allegedly, were abusing young girls down there. Yes.
I want to say that the victims. That I'm not the only one. I think women out there are feeling really afraid and put upon. We no longer have Roe v. Wade. And this is in the face of a president who's been tried for both criminally and the writer who sued.
Oh, and E.G. and Carroll. And wait until they pass the SAVE Act, saying that if your birth certificate and your driver's license don't have the same name, you can't vote. I mean,
he's a convicted sexual assaulter and criminal.
Yep. I'm with you.
Thank you.
I'm with you. Adjudicated, I think, is the proper word, but I'm with you, MJ. Thank you very much. It's 10 minutes before the hour. I'll be back with you in 1 minute. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Did you know that the ancient Roman Republic, which for 480 years was actually a democratic republic before Julius Caesar kind of ended the democracy phase and replaced it with the autocracy phase, that they were brought down by a very small group of very rich people. The richest man in ancient Rome was Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was the richest guy, the billionaire of Rome. And he frankly hated the Roman free bread for all welfare system. It was being paid for with his tax dollars, after all. So him and Pompey the Great and a few other rich guys got together, and they basically crashed Rome. They turned it into an oligarchy and then into a tyranny. And the parallels to what Trump is doing right now are absolutely shocking. There's an article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled American Caesar, Trump's Path to Power Mirrors Rome's Darkest Days. Check it out.
They're laughing in their towers, counting every dime as we're scraping by on nickels, just trying to survive. They're stacking up their billions every single day, while the schools and roads we're driving on are crumbling away. From the Dust Bowl days to the factory floors, we've fought these kings before. Now they're back again in tailored suits and ties, obsessed with hoarding power till the planet dies. It's the billionaire hoarding plague, sick with greed, addicted to the take. They'll sell our souls and steal our dreams till we rise up, break the fever, and reclaim what freedom means. It's the billionaire hoarding plague. We won't let them drag us to the grave.
53 minutes past the hour, picking up the calls here. George in Cripple Creek, Virginia. Hey, George, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, last month, Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, signed an order prohibiting U.S. intelligence agencies from sharing any intelligence involving U.S.-Russian negotiations on ending the war with the Five Eyes partner, right? The Five Eyes are the U.S., U.K., Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And according to an article in Pravda, quoting FSB source, FSB is the successor of the KGB. Right. She now considers the UK an enemy because, number one, that was the source of the Michael Steele dossier on, Russia-Trump collaboration with the 2016 election. Mm-hmm. And number two, the UK wants to replace the U.S. as the prime supporter of Ukraine and wants to shut the U.S. out of any deals involving exploitations of Ukraine's rare earth minerals.
Oh, that's interesting. So this is showing up in Pravda. Was this some random opinion guy, or is this the official voice of the
this was
Russian government?
Supporting FSB, which is basically the KGB renamed.
Right, which Putin used to be a part of, and presumably still is.
Yeah, right. He was a colonel in the KGB.
Interesting. So what does this mean for the future of the U.S.-Ukraine relationship and Ukraine and its war?
Well, I'll tell you another one. I think Ukraine's going to do all right because President Zelensky today said, on Friday the DOD prohibited Ukraine from using, U.S.-supplied weapons like the ATACMS and the HIMARS hit targets in Russia. Mm-hmm. But President Zelensky is saying now that, new Flamingo cruise missile, the 1,800-mile range, is coming into production, mm-hmm. and Ukraine won't have to rely on using any U.S. weapons anymore.
Yeah, it's going to get
I think that's a step in the right direction.
I think you're right. George, thank you. It's always so nice hearing from you.
You're fighting for your life. You can't fight with your wrist tied behind your back.
Amen.
He doesn't need our permission to defend his own country.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. George, thank you. Well said. I always appreciate your insights. Thank you. Jeff in Portland. Hey, Jeff, what's on? What's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I didn't wake up in time to catch you on Velshi, but I listened to it later on, and it was excellent and really good to hear you end with urging the Democrats to embrace the we society values. Mm-hmm. My suggested slogan for that would be a lift all boats we society, not a more yachts for billionaires me society. And we have a couple protests. Yeah, we have a couple protests coming up targeting the billionaires. The first on Labor Day, workers over billionaires, and the second on the 20th of September, Make Billionaires Pay protest. And people can go to the blop.org to check those out. Mm-hmm. But, Tom, happening today, the DNC is beginning a 3-day meeting in Minnesota, and Norman Solomon has a great piece on common dreams. Will the DNC end their complicity in Israeli genocide or double down? Sadly, it sounds like they're going to double down. But on a more hopeful note, they're talking about getting dark money out of the Democratic primaries, and we need to do that pronto.
Amen. Jeff, thanks for all the updates. I appreciate it. It's always nice hearing from you. I appreciate it. And thanks for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.